Hello, testing. ICT, we are starting right away.
Please, can we all stand for prayers? Can we all stand up for prayers? We'll be using the second stanza of our national anthem as our prayer. Second stanza. They don't seem to have it. Okay, so in Jesus' name. We can just say it. They don't seem to have it and to be ready. O God of creation, guide our right and noble cause, guide our leaders right, and send them to prove to sin. Develop now and then we also want to take the national anthem. I don't know if they are ready for that now. National anthem, please. So please, let's have Unimed anthem. very much. Can we all have our seats? I'd like to welcome everyone to the second University Research Day that is being organized by the Central Office for Research and Development, taking place today at the Thetford Hall Lecture Theatre, Medical Village Campus, Ondo. At this point, I'd like to welcome some dignitaries to the high table. The first person we are welcoming is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Medical Sciences, the person of Professor Adeshegun Fatisi. Professor. The second person we are welcoming is our keynote speaker for today, in person of Professor Olukemi Amodu from the Institute of Child Health, University of Ibadan, Nigeria. The third person I want to welcome to the high table is Professor Ogundaunsi, the Director, Strategy and Program Development, Unimed. So I also like to welcome Professor Owolawi, the Director, CD, that is Center for Entrepreneur Development and Innovation, Unimed. The next on our agenda is the welcome and opening remarks, which will be delivered by Professor Adeshegun Fatisi, the Vice Chancellor, University of Medical Sciences, Ondo. Professor.
To be honest, I'm not sure I want to deliver any opening remark. I'm not sure this is what we plan to do. I'm not sure this is the kind of research day that we planned. I'm honestly not sure that this is the agenda that we have. Let me nevertheless perhaps start by welcoming and acknowledging our guest speaker for the day, Professor Olukemi Amodu, who I have known for several years. Professor Amodu was the head of the department when I was doing my PhD in Ibadan a couple of years back. So you can know how much respect and regard I will have for her. And she's been a great colleague, a great friend, and a wonderful person to relate with. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being here this morning. And I'm glad that she also has joined us. Currently, she's here on sabbatical. I think she's starting fully in January. And she's going to be directing our Center for what's the center now? Center for Medical Biosciences and Medical Genomics. Center for Molecular Biosciences and Medical Genomics. That's one center that we are proud of in terms of the facilities and in terms of the personnel. But it's a center that has not gained the momentum it needs to gain in terms of its impact in research and research outputs. And that's why I'm so glad that we have Professor Amodu, who is known for our work in that field, to come to Macedonia to come and help us in this one year. So she's here today as a guest, but today is the last day as guest. If you come here tomorrow, she says tomorrow as our staff. So we are glad to have you, ma. And I'm glad to also welcome those who had come with her all the way from Ibadan this morning. It's good to have you here. Let me thank the director of the Office of Strategy and Program Development, Professor Ogundanso, who is sharing the entire program for this Founders Week. And I want to also acknowledge and thank Professor Olavi, who had this day 2 days ago as they rolled out the innovation program. Thank you very much. I must not forget to acknowledge very specially the director of our Central Office of Research and Development, in person of Dr. Yotindo Yemi, and our able deputy. I'm glad that the deputy is sitting with the director this morning. This is the first time I've seen that happen. Dr. Zireza Yenyanikon is Nyoanji, and she's someone, and I say that from my heart, I have tremendous respect for the kind of work the two of them are doing. Some of the publications Teresa have had this year, and the work she's doing with WHO are simply extremely exciting. So thank you very much for leading our group. I must acknowledge this morning all the other leading people who are here. Let me particularly give an apology that the DVC academic cannot be here today. She's away officially, and that's why she cannot be here. But I want to thank her in absentia for holding brief for me these last couple of days that I've not been around. As those of you who may have been part of the other program know, I've not been around for the last couple of days. So I'm so glad that I can be part of this today. And I'm glad that I can be part of tomorrow. So let me welcome all other leading people who are in this room. My colleague and friend all the way from Ife, Professor Oji, is here. He's rounding up his sabbatical. Thank you for being here for 1 year, and thank you for the impact you have made. We have the Deputy CMAC of our hospital here, who is also an associate professor with us, Professor Akimbodewa. Thank you. And we have the Deputy Director of the DAP, Director of Academic Program here, Lanre Felix Kumolalo. Thank you also for being here. Of course, I can't begin to acknowledge everybody one by one, but just allow me to acknowledge one last person. Professor Raymond Njiga is our Director of, I've not seen what you've done, so maybe I can't remember. He's in charge of our usual monitoring hazards and so thank you very much for being here. And of course, Mimos, who is also an associate professor here with us in the area of anatomy, and also one of the bright lights in this university, leading for us an NIH grant in neurology, in neuroanatomy, and hopefully we are going to move to a center very soon. Somebody had accused me of creating too many centers. I'm like, that's fine. For me, my exposure in life and working with institutions across the world has shown that to address research and move it forward, you must move beyond departmental to multidisciplinary, and centers are the nucleus for those kind of research. So let me welcome you to this program, all staff, all students. But like I said, I am very disappointed on 2 grounds this morning. On one ground, as a university, our culture is to start our program when we say we start. That has been our culture. So if you are starting this program at 10:20, that negates our principle of taking programs and educational agenda as business. And I do hope that we will repent and do the right thing. I know this is not the problem of the organizers. They couldn't have started this in an empty hall. And the second one, therefore, my disappointment is the fact that I expect this hall to be filled. Because the essence of a university is not just to teach. The essence of a university is to do research. And if you go back to our anthem as a university, the first word that will come up is research. Because to teach is important, but it's not what defines a university. They teach in primary school, they teach in the kindergarten, they teach in secondary school. What defines universities is the research that then empowers the teaching. If a lecturer simply teaches from all he reads, there's not really a university lecturer. It's as good as a secondary school lecturer. Because all of us can teach. I can teach geography, even though I have not done geography in school science. All I need to do is go and pick a book, read it and point it out. What defines us as university lecturers is that we are master of our field, contributing knowledge from the work we do, and using that to expand the horizon of knowledge and impacting our students with it and impacting our society. That's what defines a university. And there's no university that have a good metrics without good research. And that's why, for me, today is such an important day. And I'm glad that it's not just going to be a one-day event, but this is going to become an annual event because it's something that I believe we must do properly to prepare, to encourage, to promote, to activate new dimensions in the area of research. And for our team in the management, we are totally committed to promoting research in this university. I don't want to take all the time talking this morning, so I can drop the mic, I can listen to it. But some of you are here when I first came to this university, the first week, you remember, as we were talking about how do we move the university forward financially, and people said, let's start baking bread. You probably remember my sentence, that's not my business. My business is not to produce water and sell bread. That's not my business. It's not my business. Not because they are not good, but if that's what universities are known for, then there's something wrong with us. Unfortunately, that's what is becoming the trademark of produce water, produce kerosene, produce petrol. No. And I give an example. My Professor is here. He knows about, it was part of our project in Ife, the Gates project. That project was $1 million. That was the project. It was renewed second time. At the end of the day, we got $2.3 million. That was the project I was leading. Sir, is that not true? 10% of 2.3 million is how much? Sorry? Multiply that by Naira rate today. How much bread are you going to bake? How much kerosene are you going to sell? And that's why when we are not doing research, we are shooting ourselves in the leg. Half of the time we are complaining about salary because we are busy not doing research. Even as a vice chancellor, I was just telling my friend this morning, I still pursue research. This morning, you saw my paper. I was just submitting a paper this morning. I have not less than 4 funded projects running as of today. Our project from Ford Foundation is $300,000. And they gave us 20% for the university. 20% of 300,000, how much? Multiply that by 100. If we have 30 people doing that in this university, we won't be chasing even the state government. And it's not all about just doing it. The impact we can make. That project, for example, is something we are working with Federal Ministry of Health, we are working with UN. They are waiting for us for the results. That is our impact in terms of doing research. And therefore, when we do research, we are truly becoming who we need to become, being university lecturers. And that's why today I just want to thank you very much for being part of this, which I hope will be a catalyst and a moment of change in our affairs as a university, where our thirst for research and our drive for research is heightened and is truly at the peak of what it should be. I do hope that the talk today will be a starting point for making all of us to step back and to begin to think afresh, and to be the opening up of a new dimension of life as a university community. I'm so glad this morning when I entered my office and I saw the publication of the students, the Unimed. I hope some of you have seen it. And our students are beginning to publish work. This is what we must begin to promote, not sell rice and sell beans. I'm not saying they're not important. Center for Entrepreneurship, please continue to sell rice. That's okay. and involve better brand of. But this, if you take this anywhere and say your student produced this, somebody will say they are serious-minded students. And so this is not just about lecturers. This is about a culture that must cut across our university. Yesterday, our students had university student research day. I missed it, but one of the things we did and we are promoting is that for the students that came first and second, in addition to the cash prizes that we gave them yesterday, I hope you announced the cash prizes, we are going to sponsor them to conferences in the country. That's part of our commitment. And because we must catalyze that dream, to promote research, some of the decisions we made in management, and I'm glad the director is there this morning, I will announce some of them in detail, is that annually we will declare the research scientist of the year, and that will go with the cash prize, and we're also going to support going to conferences. And hopefully, by the time TED Fund opens its platform, we can also begin to push for international sponsorship for such people. We have decided that we are going to award money to support research groups in the university, and I'm sure that he has the result of those who will be supporting. I was thinking that by the time we open up that competition, there will be like 30 applications, 40 applications. We had less than 10. How many? Oh, 15. They didn't count properly. Oh, maybe because a number were disqualified. Our idea is that we must begin to put our money where our mouth is. If we say we are a university that is research intensive, we must use part of our own resources to grow research groups and to support research agenda. And that's why we said we want to support some research work. But when you bring a research work that is just your own department alone, or across your group alone, and there's no opportunity for mentorship, for growth, then it's not the kind of research you want to support. The kind of research you want to support is that shows multidisciplinarity, is that brings opportunity for younger people to learn from older people. And it's one that has impact to change the dynamics in our community. And I'm sure we are able to do that. I'll end up with one story, and then I'll pick maybe it's because Dr. Lara Oyinleyin, associate professor in the ONG, came in. A couple of months back, one of the securities, the police security that goes around with me, came to me and said the wife died. Died of what? Died in childbirth in this teaching hospital. Now, let me put it in context. It was not the fault of the hospital. Let me put that in context. I remember I called you or somebody. We looked through, it was not the fault of the hospital. She came in very late. But it is still our fault. How can we be here as the University of Medical Sciences and women still die around us in childbirth? There's no excuse. It means that for all our cries and shouts, we are not reaching out, we are not touching life, we are not making difference. We have a school of public health here. We have a department of 1G. We have a center for maternal reproductive. If women in Ondo do not still know that they must come to the hospital, then we have a big problem. And therefore, the hallmark of our being here is not promotion to become professor. It's the research that impact life. Why are women not come to the hospital here? What are the challenges they have? How can we begin to solve those challenges? For me, those may not win Nobel Prize, but it will win more than impact in our community. And so I want to just encourage us today that today must be the beginning of a new dimension of thinking and orientation. Basic research are important. We must continue to do them. But we must also think about community-based research. We must think about intervention research. We must think about implementation research. We must be a research-intensive university. That's the way we can make our mark. And so I want to just, again, welcome you and thank you very profoundly for being part of this garden. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our Vice Chancellor. When I saw the Vice Chancellor this morning, I said, Vice Chancellor performed wonders, because I wasn't expecting to see him physically. We still exchange communication this morning. Thank you very much, sir, for that thought-provoking speech. Now, I want to invite Professor Amodu. When I met her this morning, I was like, there are some mentors or some teachers you see from afar. They wouldn't know that you know volumes about them. You know, I'm very surprised she has not seen me before. But, you know, because she used to be a good collaborator with Department of Zoology, UI. That's why I know you. And since then, I've been following you closely. You know, there are some scientists you follow closely all around the world. You know more than their family even know them. So she's among those. So we appreciate your work. You know, when we're like looking for keynote speaker, and I had somebody just hinted it that Professor Amodu is coming to Unimed as sabbatical staff. I said, oh, Professor Amodu is our keynote speaker. And I'm happy that Professor Ogundasi was there. Say, oh, that is good. That's a good suggestion. And when I mused the suggestion to VC, you know, he approved it. So it's a privilege to have you around, ma. And now it's the keynote speech. I will implore you to please stand up and maybe you just move closer. While I invite Mr. Popola to come and read our citation.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure this morning to read to you the citation of Professor Lukemi Kehinde Amodu standing here with me. Professor Lukemi Kehinde Amodu is a distinguished scholar holding the prestigious position of Professor in Genetics, Molecular Biology, and Public Health at the esteemed Institute of Child Health, College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, Nigeria. Our academic journey includes the attainment of a master's and doctorate in molecular biology and genetics from the University of Ibadan, followed by postdoctoral training at Harvard University in Cambridge, USA. Throughout her career, Professor Amodu has actively contributed to various public health genetics research initiatives focused on childhood infectious diseases and non-communicable diseases. Her primary expertise lies in human genetics and genomics, delving into molecular mechanics underlying disease pathogenesis, particularly in infectious diseases and more recently, non-communicable diseases. Her pioneering work in exploring human and parasite genetic variability in malaria pathogenesis has yielded groundbreaking insights, fostering collaborations with both local and international experts, including significant involvement with esteemed consortia such as the Malaria Genetic Epidemiology Network, Malaria Gen, and EU-funded networks. Our scholarly contributions are substantial, encompassing over 120 publications comprising books, articles, data and sequence databases, and patents, with a Google citation count of 3,142. Achieving tenure at the University of Ibadan marked a pivotal moment in her career as she dedicated herself to establishing a genetics/molecular biology laboratory from scratch at the Institute of Child Health. A central goal for Professor Amodu is to enhance the capacity for research and application of genomics, bioinformatics, biotechnology, and genetics and molecular sciences in addressing infectious and non-communicable diseases of public health significance in Nigeria. Our efforts to integrate basic and clinical research into translational studies aim to elevate patent management strategies. Demonstrating our commitment to education and skill development, she spearheaded the creation of a groundbreaking academic master's and PhD program in public health biotechnology at the Institute of Child Health. This innovative curriculum intertwines essential aspects of biology, genetics and genomics, molecular biology, bioinformatics, biotechnology, epidemiology, and public health. The success of this program is evident through the graduation of numerous students across various levels, with Professor Amodu supervising several PhD, MPhil, MPH, and MSc students. Furthermore, our leadership extends to driving initiatives for technological advancements in education, notably establishing the first hybrid electronic classroom at the University of Ibadan in partnership with the First City Monument Bank PLC. This fosters an environment conducive for borderless learning. Since ascending to the position of professor at the Institute of Child Health, our influence has been significant, serving as acting and substantive director of the Institute at different times. Noteworthy contributions include our role as the principal investigator for the Bill and Melinda Gates Grand Challenge Exploration Grant, focused on devising innovative strategies to enhance vaccination demand among working mothers in Ibadan metropolis. Additionally, she remains an active member of the American Society for Human Genetics, contributes as an expert reviewer for granting bodies including EDCTP3, and holds the esteemed position of Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Nigerian Journal of Child and Adolescent Health. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and honor for me to welcome to the podium Professor Olukemi Kehinde Amodu.
Good morning, everybody. One of my PhD students wrote that citation, so I don't know. I told him he should temper down the accolade. He said no, I should bring it like that. So. Move this one closer. So okay. Okay, it's moving. Good morning again, everybody. I want us to go through this talk. I hope it will be interactive enough for you to follow me. If I wanted to give a boring, normal, traditional speech, I'd have been reading it. But I want us to go through this lively presentation. And again, I will also take you through a journey. I'm going to talk the walk, and then I'm going to walk the talk. So it's not just about talking the walk. You know, when you talk the walk is when you do a lot of talking. But when you walk the talk, you talk about some of your experiences so that people can see what you have gone through yourself. So that is what I'm going to do with this presentation. So we are doing innovation and interdisciplinary collaboration in this modern, I wanted to change it to this modern research landscape. It keeps changing, you know. So where are we now and how are we doing innovation and interdisciplinary research at this point? Well, we know the traditional, which is the curiosity-driven research. Science is defined as observation, identification, description, experimental investigation, and the pursuit of an application of knowledge, you know, of understanding our natural world and following a methodology based on evidence. That's the normal curiosity-based research. We are used to that. We do that a lot. But something has to change now because the world is changing and we need to move with the world as we are going. So this is the traditional pathway. We identify a gap and we say, oh, how do I fill this gap? We start conceptualizing, thinking about what to do, investigating, you know, doing our literature research, conceptualizing the problem, trying to see what we can do and how can we answer this problem. Then next we experiment, and then we look at our findings. And with our findings, we pontificate, on paper, we do a lot of explanations, and we publish. Sometimes we do that for policy briefs, for those who know that. Sometimes we do technical reports. Sometimes we do a lot of other things, maybe monographs and things like that. And sometimes we actually patent. And then we shelf our publications, and we move on to the next one. So what do we need to do? We know about science, STEM. Is it STEM or STEMs? I think that is where the difference will come in this modern day. Are we doing science for ourselves, science for the next question, or science for society? Is our technology affecting society? That's why I said, is it STEM or is it STEMs? Because our STEM has to be for society before we can move on. So I'm going to define multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary so that we move on from there. I think I'll just move on with the interdisciplinary since we are not focusing on multi this morning. So I don't think I can read this because when I was reading it, there was no comma. It's like what lawyers do. You know, lawyers are the ones that write like this so that you won't breathe. So it says integration of the contributions of several disciplines to a problem or issue by bringing interdependent parts of knowledge to encourage combined thinking and sharing of methods towards solutions that cross traditional boundaries between them. So this is the internet definition that I found. But I think along the line, we are still going to we will all modify this definition together. But this is where we are starting from. Interdisciplinary collaboration is critical. I want to thank my PhD students and my colleagues at work again for helping me put this together. They're the ones that put this acronym together. It is critical. We need critical thinking when we are doing interdisciplinary research. Resourcefulness. Those are the things that come out when we are actually working with other people beyond our own field. We need inspiration because you are working with different people and sometimes you get stuck in a problem and it's like, how are you going to get out of this problem? And somebody comes up with something. That is what I call an inspiration. Then you need teamwork. You can't do it alone. Everybody has to work together. You need teamwork. You need team interaction. You need to be able to work with a team before you can have interdisciplinary research. And then you need to ideate. That's an innovative term now. Ideation. We need to talk about ideas. In my research group, we call it experiment in thought. What do we do with experiment in thought? We do the experiment in our imagination. You know, I tell my students all the time, master students, I tell them that imagination is free. There's no price tag to imagination. You can do anything with your imagination, you know. Right now, I can stand here and imagine I'm in the US. It's free. I don't need a ticket, you know. So ideation is something that is important. We have to allow our minds to run free. But a mind that will run free is a mind that is filled with knowledge. It's not just any kind of mind. A mind that has read wide. I tell students, read wide, read wild. That means read as all sorts of things. It's such a mind that can ideate because you would have picked up so many ideas from different places. And then you need creativity. Oh yes, you need creativity to work with different people because everybody comes together with their own background and something has to be different from you. So you need to be creative. And then you need to be able to adapt to other people. So you need adaptability in a team. That is very important. And interdisciplinary collaboration teaches you leadership. Because before you can be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. And if you are not a good follower, there's no way you can lead other people. So it teaches you how to lead. Because sometimes you are not the one leading at that point. Somebody else is bringing up a different idea and you have to follow. So that's why I say interdisciplinary collaboration is critical. It's critical for research, it's critical for innovation, but don't let me get ahead of myself. All right, so this is my own definition, or should I say my own experience with interdisciplinary collaboration. It's an exciting way to broaden your view. I remember a few years ago, Institute of Childhood employed an anthropologist, and she came up with things I've never heard of in my life. And it's like, oh, how do I fit this into my own way of thinking? And you know, it brought the idea of, why am I doing research? I need to sharpen research for the society. I need to understand what the cultural environment is about before I can bring my research in. So it's an exciting way to broaden your view. You observe different angles from your own viewpoint. You have your own viewpoint, then you have different angles, and you begin to see from other people's, angles and see, oh, that means I should not stay firmly in this position. Then you need to challenge yourself. It helps you challenge yourself, and then it stimulates your thinking outside the box. And it's a great opportunity for learning and improving soft skills like team interaction, leadership, etc. And finally, it helps you to sharpen your problem-solving skills. Imagine you are in a group and everybody is talking and everybody has problems, and suddenly somebody turns to you and says, what is your solution? And you are dumbfounded. No, you can't be dumbfounded in a team. You have to learn how to be, think on your feet. So it sharpens your problem-solving skills. Okay, so I move on to say that there's no research innovation without interdisciplinary collaboration. We cannot innovate anything until we start working with other people beyond our own traditional boundaries. So this is the traditional way we've talked about. And in conceptualizing, we need to investigate from every angle. So we have a problem. We want to understand what the problem is. We need to understand this problem from different points of view, not just one point of view. One point of view will just give you a paper, and you publish it and we shelf it. But different points of view will give you something more than that. And that is where we come to interdisciplinary research. Because when we are all together, we are looking at different, it's not, it may end up not just being one paper. It can end up being like 5 papers, because you have different points of view, different angles. Everybody's looking at it from one different angle. And there's a lot of ideating going on when you are collaborating with other people. So innovation and interdisciplinary collaboration has to have some main objectives. You have to be able to provide different perspectives on a problem, create your comprehensive research questions, and define your definitions as a group together. And what you are doing is to resolve societal or complex problems. So innovation-driven research, for it to be successful, you must have new ideas that will develop new techniques, products, if you are into diagnostics and drugs, new processes. They are also innovative, and new services. So those are the things we need to think about when we are talking about innovation. So how do we put interdisciplinary research and innovation as a working partnership? Now I digress a little. There's this concept I came across a few years ago. And I imagine that if we think of this as a university, if universities think of knowledge economy, meaning that we are producing knowledge as services, as something consumable, something we can give to our nation, then we can begin to give something back to the nation. I think sometimes that the universities are there, and if we need to solve problems in the country, they are not the first place to go. Have we asked ourselves that question? We are not the first place to go. I'm sorry to say this. I am from University of Ibadan, but I ask a question every day when I'm driving home inside the campus. And there's this terrible traffic in front of the campus. And I say to myself, sorry, what is our engineering department doing? Can we not do traffic lights here? Would we not have an impact on our immediate environment? So those are the things we have to talk about. So knowledge economy is a system of consumption and production that is based on intellectual capital. And it's the ability to capitalize on scientific discoveries and applied research. And so, with this our traditional identify, conceptualize, and all that, we must come into our own research landscape. And how do we do that? We have to start in our conceptualizing, in our experiments, in our findings. We have to start identifying or innovating solutions for our society. Solutions that we can identify, we can do product design, we can have a prototype for, and actually bring it out as a solution. So, in essence, something has to change. We have to claim this space, and we have to claim it now. We have to have marketable solutions. It may not always be about money, but it has to be about impact. So, how do we connect to the pillars of knowledge economy? The pillars are learning. You have to have an innovative climate or environment. We have to be able to focus on human capital, and then have information technology resources. So those are the things we need to connect to. How do we connect to learning? We already know learning. We know how to recognize knowledge gaps. But we need to add knowledge for innovation. We need to have knowledge for societal impact. That has to change. And then we have to concentrate on human capital. I'm still going to talk about that later, but it's one thing I do with our master's students. I tell people that when master's students come, some are coming from different environments, and And sometimes the country has already killed all their innovative abilities from them. You know, when you have to wake up in the middle of the night to iron your clothes, and you are looking for water to bath, you don't have any, you don't have, sometimes it has taken away your dreams, your ability to imagine. So you have so many, you are not even thinking of how you can create anything. So one of the things we do is human capital, and it is very important. How do we mold our students? How do we let students, you know, learn teamwork, team interactions while they are in school? How do we, I know we are doing entrepreneurship now, but are we teaching them how to create things right then while they're in school? And this Gen Z, they are really good for that. And it's time, and you know, I think they will challenge us because we have to change our own orientation as the older generation. Now, innovation labs, they've traditionally used universities as their crowdsourcing places. So they come and take ideas from us at the university. And we are so content by telling them that we have the brightest minds, just give us money for research and come and take all our ideas. And they go away with our ideas, go on into the innovation laboratories, develop those things and start making good money from it. So we need to change the orientation. Education and knowledge must become productive assets. So we are not just for research alone, we have to be for innovation as well. So we have to change the climate in the university. This has to change, and it has to change now. Then there's information technology. We know about communication, computers, internet, how to use the internet. But do we use the social media like the Gen Z do? What can we use it for? How can we give information out there? Even the traditional media, we can do something with them. But we are not connecting as much with the society. I saw this on the University of Maryland platform, and I just love this. You know, this is innovation applied, and it's like a walkthrough. We have to start thinking like a village. Everybody has ideas. Everybody has something that they can contribute. There are things that can be groundbreaking. We have to combine applied and basic research. We have to think about how do we want to execute this. Anybody can make anything. We can do things. We have the ability to do it. And this has to be human-centric. And when it's human-centric, we start ideating and, you know, we start thinking, there's design thinking. How do we make this thing better? We have a process. How do we make it better than what it is now? It's about the process. You can't just talk. You must walk the walk. So I love this, and I want to give this as a challenge even to us at University of Medical Sciences, that innovation has to come. We have to get into this path. So there are so many things in the world now, so many trends that we have seen. For example, there's innovation, science and technology. We have biofuels based on algae. We have development of new vaccines, just as we saw with COVID. And, you know, in the last few days, I came across something about biological computing systems using DNA hard drives. You know, they actually develop synthetic DNAs and use them as hard drives instead of your USB drive. Some people are doing a lot of work on this. So there's a lot going on. Bacteria and solar panels for food production. A lot of things are going on in the world. So many scientific breakthroughs. And so we come back to what can we do to start working in this direction. Since I'm a molecular biologist, I'm going to stay in my own comfort zone. I'm going to define what molecular sciences are and how this can help to be an interdisciplinary research. A center for interdisciplinary research. So I look at the broad term, molecular sciences, because it covers molecular biology, genetics, genomics, biophysics, nanotechnology, biotechnology. And what you simply do is, you use this to describe molecular structures. We are looking at disease diagnosis. We can use it to identify genetic or molecular errors of inherited diseases. And molecular sciences is an essential component of medical research. In the US now, analyzed medicine. It's gone beyond group medicine to the individual. And we need to start thinking along these lines. So I did a word sorting, and I picked out words from molecular sciences. So we have genetics, genomics, we can do all sorts of studies. There's still so much we don't know about our own population. There's still so much to do. In non-communicable diseases, there's still a lot we have not, we have not done. Even look at the society here in Ondo, how much have we done in terms of non-communicable diseases, even the genetics aspect of it, of hypertension, diabetes, and things like that. So there's still a lot of work to do. And I just want to challenge us that molecular sciences is central to interdisciplinary collaboration. You have so many things. I just put all sorts. I couldn't crowd it more than this, but you can do clinic-based research, looking at candidate genes, looking for errors and genetic mutations. You can do public health research. Now there is a lot of work on how do people process even food. So there's nutrigenomics going on now. There is pharmacogenomics. Now, I always tell an interesting story with this pharmacogenetics thing. My cousin stays in the UK. So she was going to have a baby, and she had high blood pressure. So they were trying to get the blood pressure down. It wasn't going down. They were giving all sorts of drugs and all that. And the doctors were panicking. She could actually see them panicking. And then while they were going, everybody was racing up and down what to do and what not to do. There was an old Indian doctor just walked into the place that day and wondering, why is everybody running around? And they said, oh, we've been trying to get her BP down. Nothing is working. And he said, oh, all these drugs you are giving her cannot work. She's of African descent. And these drugs will not work for somebody of African descent. And so he said, okay, let me write a few drugs. And he did. And the BP came down. So the drugs we use in Nigeria, have we really tested them with our population? So those are the questions we need to ask ourselves in terms of interdisciplinary collaboration. Okay, so let me move on. So there are important sub-things to consider when we are looking at molecular sciences. You have the surveillance of infectious disease agents. We have seen that a lot with COVID, and I think with Ebola, we saw surveillance. Then we have bioreagent development. For goodness sake, can we not develop reagents from our own local supplies? These things are around. What can we do with them? Those are questions we ask ourselves. Bioinstrumentation, can we develop instruments locally? Those are things we have to think about. Drug-resistant testing and surveillance. So now I've talked the walk. Now I want to walk the talk. So I'm going to talk about my own experience. Sorry, I don't know why this is doing this. Okay, so I started my PhD with a question. Why do some children develop cerebral malaria and die, and others do not? I'm a basic scientist. I finished from the Department of Zoology. I wanted to do my PhD. I entered into Professor Walker's office many years ago, because now he's looking at me. And that was the question he had for me, that we see children die. Some children also have cerebral malaria, they don't die. We see siblings coming, some develop cerebral malaria, some do not. Why? Is there something happening beyond what we see in the clinic? So that's how I started my journey. So I started interdisciplinary research as a PhD student. This was actually my first paper, looking at intraleukocytic malaria pigment and how it affects clinical severity of malaria in children. And from then on, we are able to see again that, okay, we can apply genetics to medicine. We need to understand the underlying genetic causes. How can that help us with prognosis? How can that help us find diagnostic screening, provide new treatment strategies? And does it give us information about genetic risk factors? And so in filling the knowledge gap, I've been able to do this. I mean, these papers have come looking at all those different aspects. And I put this one as the last one because this talks to us about what the picture of medical genetics and genomic medicine in Nigeria. We still have a long way to go. There's still a long way to go. You know, sir, that I'm not sure there's any clinical genetics, a clinic for genetic medicine in any hospital in Nigeria. I'm not sure. And yet we have children who have conditions, who, if they are tested, can be managed properly. Yeah, they may be managed for them to have maybe a better life than what they have. But we don't even have any basis to test them. So that is one of the major problems we have. So those are things we have to think about. So we need to focus. So now the focus is going on the individual. Every individual is unique. Each person has his own version or our own version of the disease. Have you seen that some people have the same disease? Some people have progressed quickly. You know, some people, it takes time for them to progress. What are the underlying conditions? What are the things that are causing all this? The disease somebody has affects how he's managed. And that is why we now have what is called personalized medicine now. So in the general population, you have drugs. Maybe 30 to 60% respond to the drugs. The rest do not respond to the drugs. And they are giving all the drugs. Everybody is giving the same drugs. So we have to start thinking, how can we make a difference? The genetic predisposition of the person will allow the person to, well, the management of the disease will only be focused on the component that is most responsive to management. And so, just because somebody is at risk, doesn't mean that that person will have the disease certainly. So those are questions, that we've seen and we need to ask and work together to come to answers about. So, how do we do knowledge for innovation, filling the critical gap? So these are some of the studies we have done. An MPhil student did this on prostate cancer. He just graduated this last November and found some SNPs or polymorphisms that confer prostate cancer risk in our own population. So how do we do this? And during his exams, one of the examiners, who is an internal medicine person, was so excited that they're having problems with PSA now because it's not specific. Is it possible for us to do research in our own population so that we can develop such testings or diagnostics for us to be able to see, how is this person at risk? Or can this person progress quickly to the disease if we do this kind of studies? Again, we found that, is it possible that there is a link between diabetes and malaria? Doctors have problems they treat diabetes, and some just progress on to complications, and yet they are managed well. Is it because we always have these hits with malaria? Is there a connection between malaria and diabetes? So these are some of the questions we are looking at. Again, I mentioned that education, I think the challenge for us older ones is that we have to start innovating for education, or else we are not going to be relevant to the next generation. They will just go online and start taking courses from different places. So we have to make sure we are, making a difference. So we need to innovate for education. And I want to tell you the work I have walked through this. So how do we work from the old into the new? I considered biotechnology. There's a lot about biotechnology, but there was a gap. We don't have much about biotech education, especially public health biotech education. And so that's how we started the program on public health biotechnology. And the main objective is to close the gap, bridge the gap between science and society. Meanwhile, building capacity for genetics and molecular sciences and bioinformatics. In this program, we have what we call a master class. Oh, that class, some students moan when we have this class. Oh, they do, they moan. Because they think I am very wicked when we are going through this class. But the main purpose of the class is to teach students how to be innovative, how to work in a team, then how to, when there are odds against you, how do you find yourself? How do you build confidence? How do you learn the concept of experimenting thought? And do you know, we take this thing for 2 weeks. Oh, it's a pressure time. What students will understand is a time of pressure for we, the lecturers, as well. Those 2 weeks are not funny at all. But the great thing about it is that you see students who, they just, within those 2 weeks, they just wake up. You know, they'll just wake up. That's the only way I can explain it. They just wake up and they become aware of their environment. And at the end of these 2 weeks, what we do is that we tell students that they must look around, they must walk throughout the 2 weeks, and they will do a pitch of an idea that can work in our environment. They will look for solutions for our environment, and they do the pitch. And I will share with you some of the things. Oh, well, these are some of the students, maybe I don't need to walk through this, but some of them say, well, the special program helped me to know how to use local resources to create scientific, innovative approach. And so those are some of the comments from the class. I'm still going to go through some of the ideas the students have given us and how we have gone with them. So another thing is, how do we learn without borders? I have collaborators. Some of them became friends. How can they, take part in our teaching? And from the beginning of the program, we had a statistical geneticist. He still teaches till today. I don't think we have such capacity in Nigeria. So he teaches that. And so we got other people on board. We have somebody from the industry who teaches bioinstrumentation. And when we came across this, the next thing was, how are we going to make students be in a class? And that's how the electronic classroom came to be. And FCMB gave us an electronic classroom where we can have workshops with the students and across borders. So now to talk about our innovation and some of the things we have done. I think it was 3 years ago, plastic surgeon from UCH asked me a question, that is it possible for us to have leeches in Nigeria? I don't even know what they are, though, I said because they find that they have a market for it in West Africa. They want to use it in plastic surgery. So leeches are important to them. I didn't even know whether we have in Nigeria, so we started doing the research. So we were able to find in some water bodies some leeches, and we were able to identify that they have the iridine, which makes them medical leeches. So we are still working on that to see and type, and then to be able to know how we'll farm this. If this is possible, then we can contribute to patient management through that. Then again, there's malaria control with citrus derivatives. This has been around, but we gave ourselves a challenge that is it possible to make it into sprays? Would we be able to use it to impregnate bed nets or use them as, impregnated cottons? So those are questions we are still asking ourselves. These are some of the ideas from the students, and we are carrying them out. Now to talk about this one, this is really exciting. One of the class that we had, they came up with the idea that you can extract chitin from prawns and process it into chitosan. And chitosan is used in many ways. It's used in cosmetics, and we import it in Nigeria, actually. There's a whole field for it in Nigeria, but we don't produce in Nigeria. So the question was, okay, prawns are expensive. And then we discovered that cockroaches actually have chitin. So how do we extract chitosan? So from cockroaches, and we had a high yield of chitin from cockroaches. And then for the first time, we were able to extract chitosan even from this African river prawn. These are some of the ideas from the students. And the students, what happens is that one set of students gives the ideas, the next set of students carry out the ideas. So this one was carried out by one of the students. All right, so again, there was a question on, there's a lot of plastic usage in Nigeria. Is it possible for us to develop something from bioplastics? So, okay, we can develop bioplastics from potatoes. And then we went on to, okay, can we develop it from wastes, cassava peels, spoiled potatoes? And one of the students was able to do this. So this is one of the studies we've been able to carry out at the Institute of Child Health. And so we are continuing with that in our research. people-centered research. One of my students is doing something on malaria and hypertension link. Somebody is doing GIS mapping and drug resistance. And then we want to know the levels of beta thalassemia in Nigeria, something that's not really been done. And then we have malaria and dengue fever comorbidities. What can we do about it? And finally, we're also working on bioinstrumentation. So I've walked the talk. And I must challenge us today that we must own this space as academics. We'll continue to bridge the knowledge gaps. But we must ideate, we must create, we must innovate, and we must make social impact. I want to acknowledge, these are supermen who took me on the path of interdisciplinary research. Dr. Olumese from WHO, Professor Gbadegeshin, who is at Duke University, and Dr. Adeyemo at NIH now. They were the ones that took my hand and taught me on this path. And then my advisor when I was doing my postdoc at Harvard, Professor Dan Hatto. And I want to also talk about Professor Omotade, who took a chance. You know, I was a basic scientist, basic, and he employed me at the Institute of Child Health. So I think his experiments worked. And this is my brother, this is my sounding board. When I have all sorts of crazy ideas, he's the one that will say, okay, calm down. Let's talk about it very well. My brother, my twin, and my team. I want to thank, some of them are here today. I'm sure you can see their faces. I just want to say thank you to everybody for listening.
Wow. Thank you very much, ma'am, for that very fantastic lecture. No doubt we have really learned a lot from the lecture. But I just want to recap some of the key points from her lecture. She talked about collaborative research, which we can use to solve problems. And then she encouraged us to usually have a teamwork approach in solving problems. And then she also talked about designing innovations, because when we design innovations, they are marketable and they can create solutions. Then she also encouraged us that we should also work towards bringing innovations to Unimed, and then which will make impact in our society. She talked about the challenging us that we should not just be researchers alone. We should think outside the box, how we can innovate and how we can make impacts in our society. And these are very, very key points that will be very important for us as researchers, not just lecturers, as researchers in this university. Now she applied her own methods, how she was able to bring innovation through her own research using genetics. And then she even wondered that we did not even have any clinic, any genetic clinic in Nigeria, which is a very big research gap. If in the whole of the country we don't have that, we can be thinking towards that, how we can generate something that can lead to the production of a genetic clinic in Nigeria. Now she challenged some of our clinical colleagues that are into urology, that even PSA that we are now using now to identify or to make diagnosis of prostate cancer, it is even becoming something that is not even reliable anymore. She has challenged us that we can even look into other things that can actually help us to make proper diagnosis for prostate cancer. And she suggested that we should be research oriented as we are, but innovation should be the key things that can help us to actually make impacts in the society. On this note, we want to say thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am, for this very beautiful lecture. We appreciate it, and I'm sure we have learned a lot from your wealth of knowledge. Thank you very much, ma'am. So the next The next thing on the agenda is a panel discussion. At this point, I would like to, our keynote speaker will still remain on the high table because she's one of the panelists. Thank you, sir. Professor Gudansi will still remain. He's one of the panelists. So I want to invite Professor Oluwagbemiga Adeodu, the chairman, Research Ethics Committee, University of Medical Sciences, Ondo. I think we saw him in the hall. I may have to be at the middle. I may have to be at the middle. The other person that should have been here is unavoidably absent, so we understand the DVC. Now, at this panel discussion, we'll be looking at conducting research with impacts, addressing funding challenges in institutions with limited resources like ours. But we know we are getting there by the grace of God. Now, I'll be asking the panelists some questions, and which they will provide answers to, for us to learn from their wealth of experience. And even apart from these questions, if they also have maybe some other things that they can suggest to how we can actually bring innovation and encourage interdisciplinary collaboration, and how we can address challenges in funding research. Now I want to start with Professor Amodu, our keynote speaker, sir. Our keynote speaker. I want to ask, man, how can institutions with limited resources strategically prioritize research areas to maximize impacts?
Well, okay. Well, what I can say is that sometimes we can't continue to depend on funding that we may not get. If we don't get the funding, what do we do? Does that mean we will not do research? I think we need to think about what are the major problems that we have, and itemize or list them out, prioritize them. Then look at what is the major hanging fruits, what is the most attainable, and start building, a story. Because if we are looking for the fantastic research, we still need those basic stories to be able to tell the fantastic research. It's until we've done those small stories, we have a lot of data based on the small things we've done. Then when we are now looking for the big funding, we can say we've done this, even though we didn't have as much money. But we're able to do what we are, the little we can, we're able to do while we're working. So that is one way. We need to know what the major problems are, prioritize them. What are the most important things we need to reach out to? I think that's where we start.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That is well noted. I still want to ask, ma'am, that what innovative finding models or partnerships can be established to support research initiatives in resource-constrained institutions? Okay, let me take it again. What innovative funding models or partnerships can be established to support research initiatives in resource-constrained institutions?
Okay. I think as a university, there's a lot of resources in Nigeria, but the priorities are not clear. I'll give an example of what we did with the e-classroom. There are people out there who don't know what we are doing. And we are in our own cocoon here, not reaching out to them. Or we don't even know how to reach out to people. So can we get funding even within Nigeria, apart from international agencies? We must also remember, Professor Kundaus is there, don't look at me. Don't look at me. International agencies have their own agenda. They probably will not fund what is not in their agenda. Am I right, sir? Look at me. Yeah, I'm right. They probably will not fund what is in their agenda. And yet, our own problems may not be in that agenda. Does that mean we close our eyes to our own agenda? So in answering that question, then we start thinking of where can we get money, even within this resource-constrained area that we are in. And we can. Was it a month ago that, what's this man? Danjuma gave a lot of money for a building. Is it that we are not reaching out to them and telling them what the real issues are and that we can do some things? Those are things that swirl through my mind. Maybe I don't have enough time to start going all over the place. But I created time at one time when we were looking for the classroom. And actually, we were able to get money. They have corporate social responsibility, and that's what they put it under. They said, we are not going to give you more than this. And I said, okay, fine. With whatever you give us, we're going to work with it. So I think those are things we have to think about.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make an additional comment to that bit about international agencies and their agenda. You know, one area where it's very obvious that the international agencies are not really going to put much money in is natural products research, herbal medicine, traditional medicine, and those areas. You'll be hard-pressed to find any international organization putting money into that to fund it. So we have to find ways that work in our own context, to fund that kind of research. And it's important. The funny thing is that, or the sad thing, perhaps, is that if you do research in that area and you find a druggable molecule or a mechanism that is potentially useful in treating a disease or managing a condition, then they will jump on it and offer you a paltry sum for patent, but the hard work you needed to do to come to that point, they will not fund it. So we have to think about our own environment and think about what works for us and think about how to use what we have in our own environment.
Thank you very much, sir.
There's an idea that crept into the Nigerian business space a couple of years ago, termed crowdfunding. I know that, for instance, my diocese has adopted that as a way of, making money available for administration of the diocese. I just wonder how that may work in an environment such as this, which is academic. Having said that, I know that different organizations have been, more created to help Unimed. One of them is Friends of Unimed. I know the community is enthused with, the usefulness of this university, to the community. I just wonder whether we may look into this a bit deeply and see whether there's a way we can accommodate this in the, in planning for the future, creating additional avenues for finance, for research.
Well, we'll take all of them. I'm sure they also have some contributions. Thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. I would like to go to Professor Ogundam, sir. And I want to know, so are there successful examples of institutions leveraging external grants, philanthropy, or industry partnerships to overcome funding limitations for research endeavors?
There are many examples outside Nigeria. Many. Most of the top universities you hear about, the Harvard, the Cambridge, the Oxford, they all leverage resources from industry. But within Nigeria, there are also a few examples of universities that have done that. And like Professor Amodu was saying, it all depends on how you put together your strategy and how you are able to sell your ideas to these institutions. Now, sometimes it's the university management can play a role in sourcing funds in this manner. But a lot of times it's the individual researcher who will put together, his or her idea and look for potential funders in industry or amongst philanthropy. The other thing is that when the idea is something that either the philanthropist or the industry sees will benefit society or benefits that particular industry, they are more likely than not to put some funding into it. I know for a fact that the Lagos Business School gets a lot of funding from the business community because their products feed into the business community and it enhances the productivity and the value of that particular industry. So they have a lot of endowments, they have a lot of funding, both for research and for infrastructure and things like that. So it all comes back to the issue of crafting our work and our research to produce material solutions that address real and present problems in the society. So it's a model that works. The institutions that have done it, it's worked very well outside Nigeria. We are not yet very used to that approach here in the country. But we are going to have to go in that direction because the way the global funding situation for research is going, we just have to begin to look inward for our own support.
Thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. But I still have another question for you, sir. Now, I want to know, or we want to know, that what strategies can be employed to enhance the visibility of research conducted in institutions with limited resources, attracting attention from potential funders and also collaborators?
Okay. Well, at the risk of repeating myself, I want to say that we have touched on those strategies already. I think there are two very important ones. The first one is producing results, producing solutions, addressing real problems in the society. Whatever your research or science is, if it's geared towards solving a tangible problem in society, it will, in the long run, attract the kind of attention that you need. Now, the second is linked to this first one, and that's having collaboration in an interdisciplinary manner. So whereas you might be a clinician, you might be a social scientist, you might be a basic scientist, but if you are working within a team that brings different perspectives, like Professor Amodu had mentioned, that bring different perspectives to the problem, then more likely than not, you are able to tailor your research to produce solutions to real problems in society. So collaboration within the institution and beyond the institution is also key. And also linked to this is the fact that, and we've tried this model in the past. In my other life, we had a model where we encouraged at least three institutions to come together to put together a grant. One of the institutions would be a very strong institution in Europe or America. The second one would be a relatively strong institution in a country like Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and then the third will be a weak or new and upcoming institution. So they support each other, and so the network grows, the exposure grows. The researchers get to have a better network, and you don't grow a research team overnight. It takes time. It takes time. It takes nurturing. It takes multiple grant applications, some of which will not be successful. But that collaboration is also key. So two things: collaboration and doing research in a multidisciplinary way that will provide solutions to tangible problems in society.
Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to go to Professor Hugh. What role do interdisciplinary collaborations play in overcoming funding challenges and enhancing the impact of research in institutions with limited resources?
Thank you very much. Well, for a couple of decades now, any keen observer of the tendencies of grant-giving bodies will know that they have a bias for interdisciplinary research projects. Why is that so? As has been said even in the lecture, when you are faced with a problem, a research problem, and you are looking at it from just one perspective, it tends to be narrow. But the moment you have a team that looks at that same problem from different dimensions, it's like you looking at that problem from above and people tackling it from different sides. So the approach is likely to likely to be more holistic. The yield is likely to be better. The benefits to community, to societies, is likely to be wider. Therefore, the average, grant awarding bodies would wish to support that by granting funding. So we must we must know that there is already a bias in place. And that is why it's important for researchers in the academia to look at it that way. Get to use a team rather than to want to go it the whole way yourself. Now, such approaches will have a wider conceptualization. The framework is wider. The people that would be involved, will have an overlap of knowledge as well as an overlap of expertise. And they are likely to be able to help themselves. So, bodies will wish to fund them. More importantly, too, it's likely to be even easier for them because if you look at a particular problem, any problem at all, the approach to that problem may be in different ways. The possibilities are immense. But they may not all, such approaches, such processes may not all be the same when you are talking about cost of the financing of the project. So it is possible for those who are involved in this project to identify for themselves perhaps the least costly, but also very effective method of solving problems. And once that's identified, it will be easier for bodies to also to support. Now, what is the impact? The impact will be from the point of view of maybe two areas. One, the impact to society. It's likely to be beneficial in more than just one area. Two, the impact to even the people themselves, okay, who are the researchers themselves. It opens up their own ideas. As has been said even in the lecture, you get to know, even though you consider yourself knowledgeable, but you also get to know that there are other ways of looking at problems, perhaps even better than the ones you had before. So it enlivens them and actually widens their own research horizon. Also, you find out that it helps to build competencies, particularly for those who are coming up. So the mentor-mentee kind of relationship is better served in an interdisciplinary research project kind of relationship.
Thank you very much, sir. I still have another question. I also want to know, how can institutions effectively advocate for increased research funding at both the governmental and private levels, especially in environments with competing priorities?
Okay. If an institution must advocate for increased funding, I believe there are certain things the opposition, maybe government or business people, there are certain things they'll be looking for. I believe we can start this by saying that the institution itself must be reputable. No funding agency, no government, no business will wish to fund research from disreputable institutions. So, the institution must be noted for actual academic integrity. It's also important that individual researchers themselves must be noted for that same thing. It takes only a few a few members of the academia to actually spoil the name, the reputation of institutions. So the institution as a body, the researchers themselves, and even their output, the students they have and all the rest of it, must be reputable people. Outside there, people look at the scope of even the curriculum of universities. That is why, not just the scope, but also the relationships that such universities have and their past stories. What past successes do they have? Or is it just a situation, a history replete with failures? Now, if it is a university or an institution that is noted, to be reputable, noted to have brought up, reliable results, and have served, and still keep serving the community, then getting government to, support them will be easier. But that's not all. Government, generally speaking, also have their own ideas about what should be done. So if you must, speak with government and get them to be involved in, supporting research, you must go to them. You need, therefore, as has been said before, to be a knowledge pool. If the university is noted to be a knowledge pool and you go to them to offer ideas, whether solicited or not, so long you are giving it in a way that it's not judgmental, that's not combative, they are likely to listen to you. But it does not happen quickly. You will have to, institutions will have to be patient, keep patiently plodding on, telling them, repeating it, over maybe sometimes, if you are lucky, a few years or sometimes decades, for you to have that kind of relationship that will sneeze and they will say, what can we do for you? So, to recap, the university must be a reputable institution. The research it has done, historically, must be one that people will say, these are not falsified data. This has helped us. The outcome has been good. And their community, the community outreach that they have had, we've had, enough, benefits, very good benefits from their interaction with them. And finally, they have been patient with us and they have persevered over time. When you have that kind of combination, you find that governments and business would be happy to help institutions. But I think one other thing that institutions must do, and that is to invite people in business, okay, in private sector, academia. I know about a year or two ago, the Vice Chancellor had this initiative and followed up on it of inviting, people in the academia, in the business sector, to be involved in the university processes, coming to give lectures, opening their business up for, to academia, maybe for internships or for sabbaticals and so on and so forth, and making sure that maybe they will also be happy to have students come on rotations and so on and so forth. That's the way in which we can befriend them and make them to listen to us and help when you really need them to be involved with research.
Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to go to our audience. We may be having one or two questions that we want to ask the panelists. So please, let's feel free to ask our questions if you have things that are bothering us that we want clarifications from.
Good morning, the panelists. Research has to be expensive to start with because there are low-hanging fruits around us. And if we use what we have, we can actually make our point. For example, we once had a patient, a young lady with what seemed to be nephrotic syndrome. But along the line, we decided to just scan her. And we were surprised to have multiple cysts in both kidneys. And that drew our curiosity that could there be a coexistence between ADPKD and nephrotic syndrome? And by simple literature search, we found that there were just 32 cases reported globally, and in Africa, none. And we latched onto that. And with simple ultrasound and kidney biopsy, we were able to publish the first case in Africa. And that drew the attention of the global community to the teaching hospital. We had not started the university then. Drew the curtain open. And other researchers latched onto it and they began to work in that line. That again also opened up the space for bigger journals to allow us publish in their articles free of charge. So if we approach things from the basics, looking at our resource, because I had you asking a question about resource restricted communities, we can actually do. Then I also want to suggest that if we go that route and decide to now do some simple, non-expensive pilot studies, can these organizations not be interested to now take it up? That's my question from that. Then the second question now is, a very lucid lecture, very inspiring. But if we're looking at interdisciplinary research, what would be your comment on role sharing in terms of funding by the research partners, in terms of conducting the research itself, writing up the proposal, methodology, field work, and then the knotty issue of authorship? Because, again, years back when I was, I think, a senior registrar in Ife, one of my teachers wanted to do a book, sir. And I don't think Ife has published that book. It was supposed to be a book that we have different departments contributing. And one of his challenges was that they didn't trust him, that he would, the usual stuff. And that book, until I graduated from Ife, never came to light. Again, issue of authorship and visibility. So I like your comment in that direction.
Okay, so the question is really about the roles in a team. I think things are changing from what it was like before, when we had, I don't know what it was then, but they knew more about it in their own generation. I'm pointing somewhere. But I think it's getting better, because when we're talking about interdisciplinary research, we're not talking about just one person who is holding everybody to ransom. Everybody has something to contribute. That is why you are together in a team. So everybody has something important they are bringing in. And when we are looking at different aspects, for example, I'm working with somebody who is doing the clinical aspect. It's impossible for me to be first author in that kind of a paper. Really. That if we are working together, you are the medical person, and there's something about the clinical aspect. Am I going to publish that as the first author? Even though I'm the lead, even though I'm the initiator, yes. Yeah. You did the work, that's your aspect. That's how it should be. And there are different areas. So there are some, everybody contributes, everybody brings something to the table. There are some journals now that will say, these two contributed equally. You are allowed to say that. So even though somebody is the first author, maybe the second author and the first author contributed equally. So you write it there in the journal. You contributed equally. So, I mean, that is what makes teams work and last long. I've had a team last 20 years. We started working together in 2003. Some are still with me, and we still work together. So once you learn how, you can't be the one. Even now, I don't do lead authorship anymore. I just tell them to look for somewhere to put me. Somewhere behind. They are the ones on the podium now. Even master students, we publish papers. It's the master student that leads the paper. Yes, the person who is more senior takes the corresponding author. I can't take corresponding author at this point. I'm sorry. What am I struggling for? It doesn't make any sense. So put me somewhere. They will be laughing when I say that. But that's what it is. So the senior author, person overseeing the paper, takes the corresponding author, and the master student who has graduated takes the lead authorship. That helps the person to carry on with research in the future. So it's not about cheating anybody anymore. I think we have left that age. So when we're talking about interdisciplinary research, that means everybody is bringing something to the table. And remember what I said before, it teaches you team leadership. You can't be a leader unless you are followed. If you don't follow well, you won't be able to lead well. So I think it's one of the things we also have to teach students about as they are growing up.
So she was talking about the era where there were emperors in an empire, and everything had to revert through the emperor. And you see, ultimately, like she was saying, those teams do not last long. They last for just the duration where that individual is in charge, where he or she has to be the lead author, and all that. But if you are in a team that comprises of clinicians, anthropologists, molecular biologists, sociologists, depending on what aspects of your research you are publishing, the individual that has that holds that domain, if you are publishing a clinical study, for example, the clinician obviously is the one who did the work, who is, of course, everybody contributed, but he would lead that aspect. If it's something about anthropology, the anthropologist will be the one. If you are looking at the genomics and molecular biology aspect, the basic scientists will do the work. So the team has to understand that together everybody achieves more, but everybody working together towards a common goal, and that should pervade the whole situation.
Thank you very much, sir. I was just discussing with him that reminds me of one of his lectures, one of Professor Gudan's lecture. where he was talking about teamwork, and he now mentioned the elephant in the house. Who will now be the elephant in the house? And that was the question of Dr. Akibodewa. So team spirit is very, very important. It solves a lot of problems.
Yes. Yes. You need to build from the scratch. You can't just ask somebody to come and fund an idea if you don't have a background. So, like you mentioned, you can do small studies or pile up, as more, you are working with somebody, you can also say, oh, let's do this small thing together, do another small thing together. As you are going on, you are piling up data, you have good bases. By the time you put all that together and then write for a big proposal, you already have something to fall back. You have something, they say, oh, they've done this before, you have been able to demonstrate this, maybe you've published it in a small place, now you want to do something bigger. So people can trust you more with that.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Even apart from at the national level, international collaboration, that is one thing funders always look at for. You cannot apply for a fund, for an international project. You are asking for funds. They want to look at your team members. Who are your team members? It must be from different disciplines, and that is the way you can actually get the fund. So to get funders and also to be able to do a work that is very robust, you need teamwork. Thank you very much. Please, do we have any other question for the panelists, from the audience?
I've also seen that collaborators are not always very much engaged after an award has been allocated. Oftentimes, some of the principal investigators sometimes just want to just use collaborator to get the funding. After the funding, they wouldn't go back to the collaborator and see this aspect of, we brought you in because of this aspect of the work. I've seen that a lot in our climb. When the proposal is being submitted, people will contact you. We need you to, based on your expertise. But when the money comes, I wonder, okay, why was this fellow invited me in this? Does that person just think collaboration doesn't work that way? So if you have invited somebody into a work, you must give that person something to do. You must bring something, to the table, not just getting funding because you want to have a kind of multidisciplinary outlook. But after the study, you find that the study doesn't have multidisciplinary outlook when the money has, because the people you put in the grant, because of their expertise and in an aspect, you never engage them again after the fund. That's very, very important. Pre and post is very, very important. After the funding has been acquired, the people you identify to be a member of your team must be extensively engaged after the funding, not just you say, I've gotten the fund, then I think I can go ahead even without involving the collaborators.
I would like to respond to that. I would like to believe that someone is brought into a project because he has a competency to sell. And if that competency is, can be easily dispensed with, then it calls into question not just what the motive was to start with, but what he was even expected to do. Because I think anyone entering into a project should be able to see that I'm here because of this, and I'm the person who has the competency to do this. It's the concept of interdisciplinarity is based on pooling competencies. If what they need someone for can be easily done by any other person, I'm not sure that is actually a proper interdisciplinary research. That's just my comment.
Thank you, the member of the panel. In one of the workshop, Tech Pond workshop I attended, we were made to understand that in a particular team, there can be research director and for a particular project, and at the same time, principal investigator. I don't know whether Professor Ogundansi can help us shed light on the role of the two of them, the differences in the role of research director and principal investigator in a particular project.
In the international grants world, the two is just semantics. When you have a proposal and you award a grant, the granting agency holds the principal investigator responsible for the science and the delivery. That's the person the grant is awarded to. The grant is awarded to the PI, the principal investigator. So the research director, it's in my opinion, it's a title that's really, as far as the delivery of the research is concerned, it's really redundant. You could have somebody who serves as a role as an advisor, somebody who provides some senior oversight, but it is the principal investigator that has the responsibility for the research and the grants. It's the same thing when you're doing a clinical trial or a clinical research. The principal investigator is a person, when for example, when you are doing an informed consent process, the address you have as to who should be contacted would include that of the PI, because he or she is responsible for that project. It doesn't talk about research director or any sort of thing. I think it's just a redundant title that we've introduced as many things for convenience in our environment.
Thank you very much, sir.
The person that conceived the idea of the project is the idea of the project is probably a clinical, and the person that conceived the idea is not a clinical person, and the person is probably the PI. The thing was awarded, like the question Dr. Akinbodewa just asked. He is the only clinical person in that team. The man that was training us made us to understand that such person can be made the clinical director because the work is particularly about clinical issue. The PI only conceived the idea to contribute certain part of it, but the bulk of it is the work of clinical person. So I couldn't comprehend. That's why I asked the question whether it is true or it's
in the
like
scenario
that.
you just described now,
Yes, sir.
the box stops with the so-called clinical director. It's a clinical study.
Yes.
It involves patients and human subjects.
Yes.
That's the person that has a competence in that domain.
Exactly.
Yeah, so the box stops with him, he or she, or him or her.
Yes.
That is the person responsible for that project. If there's an issue with the project, that's the person that they will ask, not the person who conceived the project, not the person that had the idea. So the box stops with the person whose domain that study rests in. In this case, the patient's human subjects is the so-called, in this case, clinical director. But as far as I'm concerned, that is still is an investigative, is a research study. So that person really is a de facto PI.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
I was trying to be sure that I don't make any comment and interfere with the panel discussion. But let me just throw this in from what Professor Abaka and Professor Ogundansi was saying. You know, ultimately for me, what defines a team is how the team defines itself. Because there is something about getting grants. There's something about the structure for managing grants. And you can configure your management in the way that suits your context. That does not take away the authority of who is responsible for reporting. Let me give you an example. When we had the project with Bill and Melinda Gates that spanned 13 years, outside the person who is like the PI, we have somebody who is director of this. We have somebody who is developing curriculum. We had Professor Alfred Adewi, who was leading one aspect of the work. We have Professor Geoffrey Intimi leading another aspect of the work. But that's an arrangement about how you implement to ensure you get results. That does not invalidate the fact that there is somebody that the funder holds responsible for submitting results. But we know that if we don't allocate responsibility that way, we are not going to be successful. Because this was a program that was bringing in like 5 departments. And then how do you want unit wants to then grab everything and run it? You are going to fail. So those are 2 different issues. Configuration for implementation and relationship with the funder. Thank you.
I think we'll entertain one more contribution from
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Lawal Oyineye, MNI, Associate Prof, Department of O&G of Unimed. I want to commend the court for this very enlightening presentation. And it's a pleasure to meet Professor Amodu in person. Now, my question is on the challenges of interdisciplinary collaboration, actually, based on personal experience. And that has to do with delegation of duty and authorship. It had been alluded on before, but I want to perhaps share 1 or 2 experiences I've had. I've been called by a very senior colleague of mine to, collaborate in a multi-center study. And I remember I stayed up all night doing some of the work, and it was acknowledged on the WhatsApp group, the work I was doing. But lo and behold, when the publication came out, they decided to use of collaborators in alphabetical order. And there are about 48 of us. And needless to say, because my name is Oyineye, it was lost somewhere at the end, and somebody who did not make any contribution as far as I was concerned, but whose name started with an Akin something, got second authorship. So, and there are several examples I can tell you where I felt shortchanged as on a team of collaboration. So, my question is, really, do you think there's a place to have a kind of MOU or a legal document before you enter into interdisciplinary collaboration, so that from the beginning, you know where everybody stands? Maybe that will be the way people will be more comfortable doing, because if senior colleague will come to you and say all the nice words, you don't want to say no. But then you cannot read what people have intentions on their faces, and what they have in their minds on their faces. So what about making it official by signing an MOU or a legal document before you start this disciplinary collaboration? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's not actually a question. I feel I should respond to, what he just asked now. I would respond by asking a simple question. There was a paper that was produced in my field. The authorship were up to 245. And when I heard that paper, I did not know who is the first or the second or the third. I appreciated everyone. It is a teamwork. So any interdisciplinary research, because there is a point where authors put their contribution, it is a research that was done as a team, and every member of that team, when you pick such a paper, you know that everybody contributed equally. It's not the first or the second or the third. Thank you.
This thing going around now about no first authorship paper. Because we are beginning to realize that it's interdisciplinary research. So you can't really place somebody as the first author. So that is where we are going. Because you have different disciplines. Even in, we fight it a lot at University of Ibadan because in promotion you have what you call percentage contribution. And so it's like, I am bringing my own expertise from my field. So you can't say I'm contributing one certain percentage. So there's so many controversies about that. In terms of the meanness of whoever the PI is, should we sacrifice cordiality? Because by the time you start introducing legal things into research, I think you are removing, the camaraderie of a team. You understand that everybody will now have to be minding their P's and Q's. Do you understand what I'm saying? Well, I guess the interesting thing is that the most important thing, I think, is that you should be very careful who you are working with. You should know people by their antecedents. You understand? So once you enter into that, you have entered, what do they call it now? One chance. So you should know people's antecedents. Let me give you an example. I would like telling stories. Somebody said I should come as a historian in my next life. I told the person, since it's just one life, I will continue to tell my stories. So let me tell you a story. I was invited to do a proposal at the University of Ibadan. Big people, you understand. So immediately I knew the set of people. I knew this is one chance. You understand? So I told myself, I said, if I say no, it can cause problem. But, okay, what can you do? What can you contribute to this team that will not affect you? So I made up my mind, just 2 hours of my time. That's all. And that's what I did. I gave them what they wanted, and I took my eyes away. Do you know till today, they never shared the full proposal? You understand? They asked us to do different, they're supposed to bring it together and share the full. They never shared the full proposal. I don't know whether the proposal was ever submitted. I don't know whether they got money from it. I don't know anything. But I gave them 2 hours. So, like tomorrow now, I still shake the PI and greet him very well. No problem. No fight. You understand? So I know this person's antecedent, so I'm not entering one chance. So you need to do that. And then you know people you can work with, where you work well together, and there's that, the camaraderie is there. Then those are the ones you should work with. So that's the only advice I can give, because by the time you start entering into legal issues, it can be tricky. You will not get what you really want out of it, because then everybody will put you may become a pariah that, this person, and yet you have something to really contribute. So that's all I will say.
Thank you very much, sir.
We can choose to look at negatives, we can choose to look at positives. And there's no one in research enterprise that has been involved in partnership that will not have positive and negative experience. Let's put it that way. I think that for me, let's focus more on the positive and let's say, how do you optimize this? Transparency in research process is important.
and agreements for me are also important. But here is what my take. Let me give a few examples. As a young resident, I was involved in starting a number of research. Nobody put my name. And I remember one guy came to me one day and said, Dr. Patterson, are you not stupid? And I said, no, I'm not. And I said, I am learning at their expense. I was a young resident. I was writing for them. They were correcting it. And I'm like, the day I need to write for myself, I won't have a problem. If all I am after is they didn't put my name, I would never have had the opportunity to learn from them. So life sometimes is not, that's my own philosophy about life. It's not sometimes about a one-way thing. I'll give you another example. And if I mention the name of the person, she will know the person in UCH. I had this project that I wanted to do with Harvard. I wanted institutional, and it came to us in Ife. We have had great project, we have had, and said, and when I heard his name, I asked my colleagues, and they said, this is one chance, don't go with him. I called Professor Jadrola. I said, Katie, he's a very good friend of mine, Prof knew him, and he's a very frank guy. I said, Katie, this is what I hear, but let's go in. We calculated, what can we get out of this? They were going to give some materials and said, okay, we'll supply these materials. We're going to go together to NIH and a meeting and a conference, we're going to have, and then there are going to be a few other things. So I told her, Katie, if you don't put in, we'll get 0. If you put in, we'll get this bit. Let's calculate. At the end of the day, I can tell you, the guy used our money to get money, but what we could get from it, for us, we're happy with it. I don't know if I'm making sense. Oh, what I should get is much more. Well, I got a trip to NIH, I got a training program, I got to Harvard with the program. And then we wrote the thing, then he got all the money and we signed paper, he never brought the money. That's his business. I can choose not to go in. But again, life is not all about this. I'm talking about my philosophy. I'm not talking about your philosophy. I'm talking about how I look at it. And I just like her, what can I put in? What will I get back? If it doesn't worth it, don't go about it. I've been on projects where they've got like 5 projects. Every time I write a letter for them, and then they come back and say, thank you, we want to do another one. At the point I said, no, I don't want to submit any letter. Don't put my name. So we all have to make decisions about what we want and why we want it. My second point, I don't see a problem with agreeing ahead of time. Where the problem happens is that you agree to be first author and then you don't do first author's work. Just because your name is first author. That doesn't make sense. And that's why some of these things, we have to put them in context. To give an example, some people will say a student, when you write with a student, the student should be the author. It's not true. It's not. It's about agreement and it's about what is the... Look, I've had a student, by the way, let me quickly say this. You will never see my name as number 1 in any work I've done with a student. In fact, until I became a professor, I never published any students. I will help you to go and publish it. Because I don't just want to get into certain things, no. But I have seen, even now, somebody writes, and I said, a resident doctor says he wants to publish. I said, okay, give me the first draft, 57 pages. And then I sit, I write virtually everything, and then you say you are first author because you did a... I don't know if it makes sense. Because authorship ultimately is about 2 things for me. 1, contribution, intellectual contribution. The fact that the idea popped up and you never touch it again, and you think, oh, I generated the idea, for me does not make a first authorship because that idea will die if nobody else work on it. But number 2 is about agreement. I can agree as a senior person. I mean, the work I just submitted this morning, the final work that I submitted this morning, I'm last person. Nobody in that team know about the work. I got the funding. I brought the team together. But I'm like, all I want to be at this point is to be a grand whatever. You can take number 1, you can take number 2. That's an agreement that works for us. So for me, ultimately, it's about contribution and it's about a sense of agreement, you can decide for your own sake, I don't want to be number one, like you have said. That is fine. But not to work, I want to be number one. For me, it's totally, totally unacceptable. It's about credibility and how you do your work. Thank you.
I think on this juncture, we just have to just, end this session. We'll try and very sure we all learned today. It's an enlightening, session. Thank you, our panelists, for the beautiful delivery. Our keynote speaker, thank you for that beautiful delivery. Professor Adiudu, thank you very much, sir. Professor Gundansi is coming back. Now, the next session is a poster evaluation. Poster evaluation. We have some, we put out a call for submission of abstract for poster evaluation, and we received some entries. So in a few moments, we'll all go out to view those posters and engage with the presenters. The posters will be graded, just like what VC said this morning. Sometimes it's quite disheartening when you call for a research week and you see a handful of people, and when we ask people to submit an abstract for poster presentation, we have less than 10 submissions. And when I went out now, I see maybe only 6 or 7 posters in a whole university. I think it's quite disheartening. And we've bought big gifts. What is it called? Award. If you have accessing just 6, I think that they are just 6 are just lucky. When God will come, it's going to be unexpected. So whether it's 3, whether it's 2, we are going to give the award because we've already bought. We want to give out to the best poster presenter. So some few moments now, please let us just go outside and engage with the posters, and I will still indulge 3 our other professors. Okay, sir.
I am afraid of us going out because some people won't come back. Can I please plead with you, come back? There's still a couple of things, it won't take long. There are a couple of announcement awards and other things. Please, I beg you, come back. Thank you.
Mastercraft on the beat. Every day by day.
Connect. Yes. Hello.
Others can be judged. Others can be judged, but this one don't judge this one. That's the only one. Yes, but the rest will be judged. Please. You can leave that one.
It's showtime. Here we go.
Of course, it has been used
Once
over
everything's
time
perfectly
to
organized, I'll start working on my thesis.
to see the effectiveness. Okay, to see the effectiveness of it. So over time, we've discovered that omeprazole actually work in proton pump inhibitor, but we want to see the effectiveness of yogurt in the preventive measure of induced ulcer in rats. So we decided to, share the group into 5 to see the 50% concentration and then 100% concentration. And it was discovered in our studies that 100% concentration of yogurt actually worked in the preventive measure for the ulcer study. Yogurt is the normal yogurt. We use Hollandia yogurt. Yes, that people take.
When you talk in terms of yogurts, right, we have varieties of yogurts. Have you tried to differentiate these varieties? Because I know in Benue we have Tito. Even here we have varieties of yogurt. Please, how did you decide on this particular yogurt?
Pasteurized yogurts.
How did you decide on this particular brand? Why Hollandia?
That is components. What it's made up of. Majorly it contains zinc, it contains calcium, and all. That is.
I have a bit of a question on your yogurt yet. Now the Hollandia yogurt is not the pure yogurt. Do you agree? It has its own sugar, additives, because it's an industrialized yogurt and commercialized. So could you not have produced your own yogurt?
Yes, we are looking at the time factor.
What we did you are using a yogurt with trade name. How do you address the ethical consideration in that?
I think we didn't actually put that into consideration. We didn't put that into consideration.
Sorry, one last question. What a particular ingredient inside yogurt? Yogurt is a name of a plant or whatever. But what's the chemical inside yogurt that drew your attention?
I actually studied more on the probiotic aspect of it. I didn't actually look at majorly the yes.
I think that would have been the major study. To know what is inside yogurt that is curing ulcers.
10 minutes to judge, or 7 minutes. The next is
This one off the other.
no, it's not of others. We can judge others. He collaborated with others. He collaborated with others.
So it's not
he collaborated
No,
with
he
others.
said no.
He said no.
Yeah, he's excused.
Okay. Okay, there is one here. Are you the one? Okay.
So this work is on the anti-cancer effect of copper-2 complex with vanillin 3-ethyl semicarbazole ligand in triple negative breast cancer. Breast cancer is one of the leading form of cancer in women, but this triple negative breast cancer is more aggressive than the other subsets. And unfortunately, it's more commonly found in women of African descent. So since the discovery of cisplatin, which is the mainstay drug for cancer, it's actually from a metal known as platinum. Since that time, there has been an attention to copper complexes as an anti-drug cancer, to metal complexes. But copper is interesting because naturally it's found in living organisms and is involved in a lot of bioprocesses in human. So what we did here is that we got copper-2, we complex it with a ligand known as thiosemicarbazole, and added a natural product known as vanillin. Vanillin is a component of anything called vanilla flavor. It's initially isolated from a living organism, but most of what you see around now is synthetic, but it's safe. So we got this complex and we introduced our cell lines, triple negative breast cell line and the normal breast cell line, that means non-cancerous cell line. So we assess the cytotoxicity, and the IC50 in triple negative cancer is far lower, meaning the toxic effect, cytotoxicity is higher in the triple negative breast cancer compared to the normal breast cell line. That means it's selective, meaning if you use that dose, the normal cells will be spared because they need a very high concentration before it becomes toxic to them. Then we try to look at the mechanism. So the main finding is that it is selective to triple negative breast cancer. It spares normal. Then it induces apoptosis, which is a normal thing that cancer cells evade. And interestingly, it employed the two pathways, both the extrinsic and intrinsic. That means it has a higher potential to kill, to be cytotoxic, to the higher efficacy, yes. Efficacy by being toxic to the negative breast cancer. Then one of the common things in cancer cell line is that they evade the normal respiratory pathway and use glycolysis. And that is why we try to look at the effect on the oxygen consumption rate and the ECA, extracellular acidification rate. And we saw that this complex was able to reduce glycolysis, which without it, they are not likely to survive.
Yeah, no, sure. Please, why did you use in some time? You used 100 minutes in some of the analysis, 120. You are not consistent with your time. Number two, what method of analysis did you do? Statistical analysis to come out with your finding?
For the work, because we always use time and concentration dependent, that's what we try to use. So we use a two-way analysis, two-way ANOVA analysis for most of them. But the timing depends on the assay you are running. Because if one thing precedes another, one may take 24 hours to work. But if this is a process that leads to that, if you are waiting to 24 hours, the process is already over. It has shifted to another thing. Yes, it's time dependent and it's concentration dependent.
Madam, how do you establish the significance of your findings? You said you used two-way ANOVA, right?
Yes. Yeah.
there is nowhere it has shown in your write-up. I can only see the descriptive statistics clearly. I've not seen any inferential statistics.
Okay, because of three.
Okay.
What we did is that P less than 0.05 is taken to the
Because I was looking at.
What is the influence of this into the layman, to the society? What are you telling us? These are
that may serve as that may be developed in future to a drug for cancer, and we synthesized this compound and we discovered that it was able, sir, that it will kill cancer cell. That means efficacious to triple negative breast cancer, but spare the normal cell if used at the right dose. Yes, that's why it's triple negative breast cancer. Selective is that it will kill a particular cell line and spare another. There are compounds that kills any cell that comes across their way. But this one is selective because in this study, it is killing triple negative breast cancer at a very low concentration. But we spare the normal cell line.
So in terms of blood cancer, bone cancer, the rest, you do not report it?
No, there is no drug that treats all. Even for a particular tissue, you have different types of cancer. Triple negative breast cancer is not even the only breast cancer. It's just a substance.
Where did you get your tissue? And then where did you get the cell line? And
Cell lines are sold by ATCC.
okay, yeah. And then where did you synthesize this compound?
It was synthesized in the lab. This work was actually done at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, US. Cell lines can move around. One thing. Yes, triple negative breast cancer is most common amidst women of African ancestry, well, especially women of West African ancestry.
What can we do to get our own lab that can synthesize this?
There are people that are doing similar things. At least I know Professor Baleye in chemistry department of Unimed. There are labs. At least I know in Unimed today, we have 2 cell culture lab. None of them is yet functional because we need money to start working. It's not what you do with 1 naira or 2 naira. But then we are at least one step after the other. We working towards it.
These 2 graphs, right? They were subjected under the same condition, but one has different time compared to the other, and I don't know. At the end of the day, the shape were not the same.
This is 0, 20, 40, 60.
100.
100.
Yeah,
this is also 100.
So why is it that the graph and
it's different. This is exposed to the triple negative breast cancer, and that's the control. So it's different cell line, the same concentration at the same time, but different cell line.
That's what we are saying. One is serving as control.
Yes.
The other one is test.
Yes.
Ideally, so control is supposed to be similar if actually it's working like control.
The results.
Yes.
The result cannot be similar to. It's not positive control. This is the non-breast cancer, and this is the breast cancer. Yes.
You want to see when you use.
Actually, we use cisplatin. I
want to compare.
The conclusion is that it is selectively cytotoxic to triple negative breast cancer compared to the normal cell cancer.
And the p-value. It's beautiful.
I'll come back. Cancer has a pattern.
That's a very good work.
Okay, so please, are you the owner of this poster? So you talk to them. We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, welcome, ma. Welcome, sirs. This is a research work titled. This is a research work titled "The Comparative Effectiveness of the Pelvic Rocking Exercise and Kinesotaping on the Clinical and the Psychosocial Variables among Female Undergraduates with Primary Dysmenorrhea in University of Medical Science, Ondo. Dysmenorrhea, primary dysmenorrhea is, let's say dysmenorrhea generally is the pain during the menstrual period, and it occurs in adolescents and women. And primary dysmenorrhea, why we focused on this, because we have primary and secondary. Primary dysmenorrhea is the one that occurs maybe due to unknown cause, or due to the increase of, yes, that's why I said primary, that it doesn't have any cause, or due to increase in prostaglandin. So now for the secondary, it has causes like and other ones, which can be diagnosed. So then the primary dysmenorrhea can actually be treated both pharmacological and non-pharmacological means. And for the non-pharmacological means, we have physiotherapy techniques. And the pelvic rocking exercise and the kinesotaping is being selected for this research. So, and the methodology, this is a pre-post-test experimental design, and we used 46 participants, 2 groups, the one group for the kinesotaping and the other for the pelvic rocking exercise. So we have 23, and they are selected based on fishbowl method. Ethical clearance was obtained by the research committee and informed consent from the participants. And also there will be screening, because we have to know, maybe is there any history of secondary dysmenorrhea. Then the baseline is being assessed by using the quality of life questionnaire and the menstrual distress, and also the pain intensity also was assessed by the numeric pain scale. And these are our results. This is the method for kinesotaping, and one had the anterior lower part of the abdomen and the other at the lower back. Then this is the pelvic rocking exercise, which is illustrated. Then the results, we assessed both the menstrual distress and the quality of life, and at the end of it, we have a categorical variable, and that is why we use Wilkinson, and that's why we recorded the median, and we saw that there was significant difference, because our result is the p-value is less than 0.05. And also for the kinesotaping too, we assessed both, and there was a significant difference in the pain, because it was measured at the baseline and the post, that is after the menstrual period. Now, the pain also, yes, when it's being compared between the two, yes sir, when it's being compared within the two techniques, we concluded that there was not much difference. But when we look at the mean rank difference, we now realize that we concluded that the pelvic rock exercise is more effective based on the mean rank and the mean value. When we check the mean value, we have differences. And then the recommendation now that this study should be of longitudinal study, so that we have more population, more people to benefit from it. Thank you.
Okay. In selecting your people for your experiment,
yes, sir.
Age?
Yes, because we are dealing. No, we used undergraduate students. So yes, undergraduate students.
How do you exclude secondary dysmenorrhea?
Yes, that will be history. History, that's why screening is very important. Once we have, there is a particular Google form that we did, that we put on student platform at different departments. So they signified that they are interested in the research, because some of them, they have menstrual pain. No, then during menstrual period, they always have pain, and some they will start like a day or 2 days before that time. So for when those people, when we recruited them, we asked that was there any history on having any like cysts, because we have some that they are having cysts that are already diagnosed. So we excluded them. We have some of them like that most of them they have cysts and they've already diagnosed them. So we excluded those ones. We excluded them. We didn't include them in our study. So then the others that were there, we asked when.
So if you exclude psychosomatic pain, would you involve a mental health physician in this study?
In this study, I did not. I did not include. Yes.
You didn't use ultrasound. You didn't use the gynae people to help.
From history, ma, we should be able to. Then, no, not you.
For them to participate in your research?
For incentives, for the students, when they are interested, especially for those people with exercise. Some will say they are tired, so we gave them like glucose. There was no financial this.
Your result, you have 4 tables.
Yes.
And you decided to present them in tabular form.
Yes, sir.
Is there another way you can present to make it more beautiful, more concise and more presentable?
Yeah, if it's in a numeric form, then I think we can.
You cannot plot it?
Yes. So
This is the importance of all the
Thank you.
lectures we have had today.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you very much. Well done. Okay, so who is this? Are you the one? Okay. So you talk to us. You have 5 minutes to talk to the judges.
Good afternoon, the judges. This work is on the anti-diabetics and anti-inflammatory properties of some selected plants, a transcriptomic approach. The transcriptomic approach is an approach that determines the alterations of some genes, and we try to feed these selected plants to some set of laboratory animals. The selected plants are T. baguense, that's a mistutu from a cocoa tree, then Peperoma pellucida, we call it ewe. Then we have Mangifera indica, a mango leaf, and Momodica foedita. Oh, that one is a Ejirinla in Yoruba. So we try to feed them to the rats. Well, we mix 30% of T. baguense with the animal feed after it has been grounded, and we feed it to. We have animal 21, 7 groups, 3 in a group. The first group is the control. The second group is for T. baguense, 30 grams. That is 30% of the extract of the leaf, not extract now, the leaf, powdered leaf, and 70% of the feed, the animal feed. Then the Peperoma pellucida, same way for the 6 groups that we have. And we fed them for 21 days. After 21 days, we sacrificed the animals, and we collected genes. We collected the organs of interest. Here we have the pancreas, the small intestine, the kidney. And so we try to see what the expression of some specific genes by using some primers. Those primers were arranged and we ordered for them. And when we did the polymerase chain, this work, and they saw the expression, and in the expression, this is our result. Found out that insulin was significantly expressed by the 70% Mangifera indica, that's our mango leaf, and also the 70% Peperoma pellucida, and the large beta gog, that's Ejirinla. It was highly expressed. It was actually upregulated. And this is just a pointer to the fact that these plants can be used to manage diabetes. Then when we check for the anti-inflammatory properties, we use primer for as interleukin 1 and the TNF alpha primer. And we found out that the TNF was down-regulated. They in the expression was down-regulated, and with the interleukins. And this is a pointer to the fact that this extract can serve as pro-inflammatory agents. So the aim is just to examine the gene expression of this
Yes.
gene of ADS.
So what are the implications? Yes, we are apart from you. Conclude, we have to conclude.
So the extract of M. indica, P. pellucida, and M. foetida upregulated the expression of insulin gene. These are the genes. All the extracts too have the ability to alleviate inflammation due to the downregulation of tumor necrosis factor, which is one of the cytokines responsible for acute phase reaction. Then all the extracts are observed to be non-toxic by the downregulation of the TNF alpha gene, except for T. baguense, that is known to be cytotoxic on cancerous cells. Some of these observations have justified the traditional claim or use of these herbs for medicinal.
Why did you select only these 4 plants? Exactly. Why did you to extend all the plants? Why did you select only these 4 plants?
There are so many plants in the world. Others can still work on the remaining ones because they have a traditional claim that they can do it. So we now try to see is it true or not.
The second implies that this work has been carried out a lot in other places. So what makes your own work stand alone with respect to those ones?
It's because of the transcriptomic approach that we use. This approach is not as if we are trying to. Not really, but it's not common. It's a very new, it's a novel approach.
Using DNA to predict the efficiency of the herb.
Yes, it's novel. Yes, sir.
The 4 plants, which one is more effective than the other?
The Peperoma pellucida and the Mangifera indica.
What is the proof?
Because they are mostly upregulated, yes, in all the degrees of the concentrate. At 30% is there, at 70% is there.
Only one mango plant. Mango has varieties of mango.
Okay.
Different species. Did you try other species to see if this gives the same result? That's one. Number 2.
I'll do that in the next research.
Naturally, their environment.
Yes.
Their nutrients.
I know.
So maybe this particular work effectively because of the environment. Do you ascertain that?
That will do. At least there are further research on some of this work. For instance, like this T. baguense, we have to go as far as into one village to get the one that has stayed long on the cocoa plants.
Did you by any means ask herbalists about the work of the usage of these plants?
Herbalists?
Do you interact with some of them? How do you have the idea?
Yes, there is a claim. No, there is a book that was produced by one man in Oshogbo. That man is a tribal. Yes, there are list of a lot of these plants there. So we picked from that book. Yes. Not a specific. I just collected. No, it's in Nigeria. It's from Akure. It was collected in Akure.
The ones here, they are different from the ones in the north.
They are the ones in our environment here. Yes. Because we have the sugar mango and this other one. The one that I use is the one that is common here.
Water mango.
Yes. The one that is common in our market. That's the one I use.
Yes. Is it scientific name? What are the scientific name of this plant?
Scientific name? Yes, it is.
No, you see.
Peperoma baguense.
How did you ascertain that this plant, that is a scientific name? There must be a certificate from a botanist.
Yes.
Did you do that?
I did that.
Wait.
It's not here because Space,
Because
yes.
there is no.
I have the voucher number.
No voucher number.
I have the voucher number. Yes, it's there on my system.
No, it's just place them there. I will not ask the question.
I have the voucher number. It was actually authenticated by one botanist in Akungba, Dr. Obembe, and were given their, and even the leaves, they are there in their herbarium.
So when you say properties, you mean expression? Because your study is more expression than properties.
It's expression. It's the transcriptomic expression.
I think you should change the topic.
It's okay.
To expression.
Expression. Because you're talking about the
It's expression.
G.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Once again, what is the Yoruba name for this? People see that. Ewe.
Thank you very much. This is the last one, sir. Can I present it? Yes, sir. Okay, oh yeah, Dr. Fola. No. He's the second doctor.
Okay. I'll be presenting prevalence of anemia among antenatal clinic attendees at a tertiary hospital in southwest Nigeria. This study was informed as a result of patients who present at the clinic. We found out that majority of them had anemia despite the anti-hematinics that are usually given. So based on that, we proceeded with this study. The study is about anemia and pregnancy, which is a global health problem causing both maternal and parental morbidities and mortalities. And the methodology, it was a cross-sectional institutional based study carried out at the Antenatal Teaching Hospital, Akure Complex. We enrolled 400 antenatal clinic patients using less sleeve formula, and then we used about 3 ml of venous blood from collected antecubital vein using a plastic disposable and sample bottles. The results, we found out that most of the women were within 30 to 39 years of age, and with the mean age of 31 to 31.61 years of age. There was no history of bleeding in most of the women, and many of them were in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. About 61 of them, 64.1% were anemic. The prevalence of anemia among the study personnel was 40%, and out of while 60% were not anemic. Among the personnel who were anemic, some 7.5% had mild anemia, while 22.5% had moderate anemia, while none had severe anemia. The table 1 talks about social demographic character of the study personnel. We found out that the age range between 30 to 39% was the highest, about 205%, while majority of them were married, and the majority of them were also Christians, while majority of them were also Yoruba of Yoruba origin. In this, in the conclusion, we found out that the prevalence of 40% reported in this study was in keeping with the study by Dim and Honor in Enugu, southeastern Nigeria, while prevalence of 40% was reported, where prevalence of 40.4% was reported. This still showed that many of our women are anemic using WHO classification of anemia, are still in keeping with global estimate of 40 to 60% by WHO, even after 30 years. So the relevance of this study is that whenever patients are being are seen in the antenatal clinic.
Carrying them on your result.
No.
One. Diabetic, one. Malaria, 49.
Science doesn't really.
It's not even close to
You
shoulder.
cannot use that to explain your result.
That's a big gap.
Should have been excluded from the study.
Okay, the Paris should have been excluded from the study.
Either it's
Okay.
excluded or more collected. So at least if it's not 49, 40, no, 38. All those, you will not get exact number.
Okay, sir.
But this one, and even 4. And it has a lot of. If you go to sickle cell clinic, you get a lot. No? Diabetics. Low numerous.
That's a.
Yes, even among the.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay. The reason is
depends on the selection.
the selection.
Can we
Most. Okay.
Please, let me come in. This patient was depends on the selection.
Let her talk now. We need clarification. We need clarification because this is I know this will affect the statistical.
Maybe we should exclude this as part of the.
Okay, we can exclude this.
You want us to exclude it?
Yes.
I think so. Oh, yeah,
But there's bias on ground already.
Okay. Now, it depends on the patient selection. The patient that we selected, for the population we selected, out of that population, it was only one that was diabetic. It was only one that had sickle cell. But most of them did not have any medical condition. The criteria for the selection, we want to see the people, why people are still coming with anemia. People have been placed on blood tonic, imatinib during antenatal, and they are still coming with anemic heart failure. So what is the reason? That was what led to this study. We want to know what is the prevalence in our area, and then the reason, the risk factors. So that is responsible. So we only did this to exclude that it is not because they have a medical condition. So now the finding is that 40% anemia, 40% were still anemic, and this is still in keeping with even what WHO published about 30 years ago, that 40 to 60% of women globally, especially in developing countries, are still anemic. And that is what we're still finding among our women. So we now look at it, what could be our reason? Many of them are having malaria infection. We know that this is a malaria endemic area. That was the medical condition we found. That was what led to looking at the medical condition.
Malaria led to anemia.
Now, when we're now looking for the risk factors, when we did the multivariable regression model, we discovered that there was no statistically significant difference. So, which means it was not actually that one that led to the anemia, but other things led to it. What led it to it? Multiparous, because of their multiparity, increased parity. Many of them were getting pregnant even before they recovered from the effect of one pregnancy. They're already pregnant again. So multiparous. And the other thing that we noticed was they were in the third trimester, which means the iron load has already been depleted by the baby and the mother. And so those are the two things.
Then you
now compare.
You don't just expand like somebody like 6 months.
No, normally when you have women like that.
Number two, again, you expect the way you include sickle cell.
He said I should wait. Let him wait. Let me wait.
Questionnaire. Are you getting me? When you prepare your questionnaire, they're supposed to answer all these questions diligently. But it's like they did not answer diligently. You now took their blood to the lab to get the result, which is a problem.
We asked the question. We asked them. Yes, we asked.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, I said after you have taken their blood, you now went during your research you got this.
No.
It was not part of it. Then you were supposed to expunge these. They are not good for statistics.
Okay, these two.
Then comment on this.
And then for those ones, all of them that were first, second, and third trimester, all of them were included, because we're not looking at only one particular trimester. If we are looking at only one particular trimester, our focus will be on only that. So we have to include everyone so that we will know where our focus will be when we are going to give them, yes, for comparison.
You were supposed to do this thing. You were supposed to do for the first trimester, the second, and the third. Then you see
I have a question. Is this just a 1 point, just questionnaire study?
It was just a cross-sectional study. It was a cross-sectional.
Booked and unbooked.
No. Booked patients alone. Only booked patients.
I have an observation now. Surprisingly, if the third trimester have an incident, these are people who are supposed to have been on MRT.
That is the reason. That is the problem. So why are they now coming with anemia?
Since they are booked patients, they're supposed to have been receiving this thing.
So that is the point. So if we had looked only at people with first trimester, we will not have answer to this.
I think the issue now is that you should follow up a study with this one.
Okay, so that is part of our recommendation.
You have to do all third trimester. Now focus only on third trimester.
So this one will lead us to that.
Then all the multivirals too, like you are saying. Yes. Let us see what all multiviral patients.
That will lead us to the next study.
Yeah,
as big as your size, sir. Sorry, sir.
Please let's wrap up the poster session.
So I have done the need.
Yes, that I saw this so pretty and everything that I didn't know she was working here. Working here. Oh, money, yeah, yes, yes. How much do you want to test it? No, yeah, after your Oh, okay. Yeah, I think what you talk about.
It is mostly used it's to be able to determine the transcriptomes that are present in either a specific cell or a multiple cells that make up the tissue. So that means a complete DNA in a particular cell or a combined cell that make up a tissue. No problem. In a Unimed here, there is one in a Odoshida. But I have spoken with
And that's the smaller one. There's a bigger one in the hospital, in the extension of the hospital. Where they have spent like 300 million to buy it. And nobody's I once spoke to Organic will help you with the ABBA, the organic. But those are in molecular biosciences. There are 3 of them, and believe me, we got them out back from the company. Come and work. One from Ghana, one from South Africa, during the COVID era. That's when it's a transition. And they are extremely good. This bank holiday is every place. Bank holiday is in biosciences. Please go and look at it. And this man who presented this month from Badon is the one that I'm bringing here to come and head the center for next year. So she's coming to resume in January. So please start talking to her. I want to see more work from molecular biology. Well done. Thank you, sir.
Please come in, let's continue. Please come in. Let only the people with VC be with. So others, please come in. We need to continue. Council, Moti already one by, so Oma disrupt. So please let's settle down. The next item on our agenda is exhibition and presentations of some projects. And these projects are few of the projects that are funded, whether internally or whether locally or internationally. So we've identified some of our scientists who won grants, and we've asked them, we've invited them to come and present to us the progress, the form of progress report regarding the grant. And as a rule, we are not coming here to present big science, just show us in few details, justification for your work, a slide of your methodology, a slide of the summary of your results and the implications of the project, then future direction or current research direction and future direction. So I have a list of about 8 individuals here. The first person is Professor Humba, who won third fund NRF grant. She's not here, so the second in the list is Professor Njiga Raymond, who also won a third fund NRF grant. This slide up. So Professor Njiga, please can come forward for your presentation. Let's give him a round of applause.
Come now, show me how this thing works. Show me how this thing works, my friend. It's not working. Show me how it's working.
The point is to this side.
Where is how do you change like this?
Yes, this is wrong. So from your own end, face this side.
Okay. Hi, it's not showing. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Professor Raymond Limenjinga, and I want to talk about my funded research at Unimed. I don't know, this pointer, is it working? Pointer. To point the light. Let me see. I don't know if I can present like this. Eh? I think I can present here, yes. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, the title of this research has to do with dynamics of radionuclide migration in soil of cropland and transfer through terrestrial food chain in Nigeria. My discipline is actually in physics, and most of the people here, we have mathematicians, we have physicists, we have some people also in biology, and some people in agric. They were not really part of the list, but they partook in the I'll stand here, sorry. So these are the list of the people. And you can see from the list, we have about 9 participants. And we are ongoing. We have one in South Africa. We have one in Okay, I will explain the person later on. In general, I'm going to talk about the relationship between farmland, our interaction, the human, and how it contributes to our welfare. So in this study, we actually work on the exposure, radiation exposure of farmers' family and the public resulting from the agricultural works and consuming radioactively contaminated agricultural products from the cropland site. When I made this presentation the first time, someone asked me, when you know a product is radioactively contaminated, then why are you carrying out the research? And I said, everything that we have around us is contains some level of radioactivity. So we must ascertain the level. And again, a similar work was done in Cameroon. The question came about, that was how I conceived this research. When we were moving around, we attended a conference, and one person asked, why are you disturbing a farmer? Why are you disturbing us? You want to get our soil and the rest. We said, just wait and see what will happen. So by the time we came back, we realized that the area, some of the areas that they were farming had beneath it highly radioactive content that were buried some time ago before they came to live in that environment. So it was a good one for them. Again, as I earlier said, this is a funded research work. So in this research work, we also include the dynamic modeling of this radionuclide distribution in cropland due to the vertical migration and uptake by crops. So we finished this work already. It has been published, and we have about 4 again that is ongoing. Now, you may ask, why are we looking at farmland? If you look at the people here, they are illegal miners. This one is especially in Ekiti. To them, they are looking for gold. They are there day and night looking for gold. But to us, the individual, they are contaminating our soil because their mining is not controlled. They use the water is not properly channeled. And if you look at this activity, they have been there for some time. So the impact of this must affect the surrounding environment in terms of the farmland and so on and so forth. So we actually carry out this research work within the 6 states in Nigeria. The first one is Ekiti, which we have just seen. And we were not just collecting samples from any type of farm. We're collecting samples from farmland that has a kind of closeness to some activities. Like in Oyo, we located the farmland around where they are performing mining of gemstone and so on and so forth. Similarly, in Lagos and so on and so forth as displays. Now, what are we looking for? We consider the farmland to have some level of radioactive contaminant used by farmers, family, as they grow.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah?
You have just 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
just
don't worry.
Go straight to your finding. One slide, please.
Yeah. Let me go there. Thank you very much. Okay, but before I go there, let me just explain this diagram a little bit. Then from there, I will conclude. This is a farmer, and the cropland is the farm, which we're interested in. And then he gets contaminated from whatever he consumed from the farm, and the child also gets contaminated from what he consumed from the farm, and also the farmer also gets contaminated from the environment, the dust, and so on and so forth. So the calculation point we were looking at is, we're looking if we could also see some level of cesium and strontium, and also we're looking for the annual total dose rate. And then we were also looking at which of the contribution factor, the pathway, was very, very essential to contribute to this dose rate. As I earlier said, we have spoken about this state. Then in terms of the crop, we categorize them in these 3 categories: cereals, root crops, and leafy vegetables. We had a very good reason for this. We have the root crops are the crops that are considered to grow within 0.2 meters upward. We call them topsoil crops. And then we have those ones that grow 0.5 meters. Those ones we consider things like yams, tubers, and so on and so forth. So these crops were collected as follows. In each of the states, we located 2 regions. And in each of the region, we divided into 10 different spaces. And then we were covering, each of the space was 100 square meters. And each 100 square meters, we allocated 13 points, 4 at the extreme, 8 at the middle, and 1 at the center. And then we now collected a sample within the 0.2 and the 0.5 centimeter, 0.2 and 0.5 meters. And then we combine it to form one sample. So that was how we collected one soil sample. And then, in terms of the vegetables and the crops, we collected with the soil sample 600. And these soil samples...
Professor Riemann, you have just 1 minute more.
Okay,
I will stop you after 1 minute. 1 minute, I don't know how I can make this presentation within 1 minute. Okay, no problem. So, these samples were all taken to various labs, and we use sodium iodide. One of the most striking important thing I want to say here is that we also carry out this research in our lab here at Unimed. We already have the sodium iodide that was also purchased from the ground. And then this is our findings. We realized that within the 6 states, these soil samples have this particular pattern. Potassium 40 is the highest, followed by thorium-232, followed by uranium-238. And then, as I said, we were measuring within the topsoil and the deep soil. So this is the relationship. And finally, and it's not finally, at this total dose, when it peaked, and we realized that the total dose, as a result of these 3 elements, was about 11 times greater than the world recommended values. Since he's saying I should close down, the results are as follows. The work has already been published, and we can actually get them and read more about them. And if you need more about it, I am always ready to explain. Thank you very much. 5 minutes, I can't present this work in 5 minutes. There are a lot of data achieved, a lot. We have vertical, we have the speed, we were trying to study how these radionuclides migrate. There are a lot of data. So far, so good. About 4 has already passed the review stage, and 2 has already been published. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Njiga. So next on the list is Professor Abubakar, who also won NRF TED Fund grant. As I said, it's just 1 slide justification, 1 slide methodology, 1 slide results, 1 slide implication of the results, and future direction. 5 minutes, please.
My distinguished audience, I actually, before the PowerPoint, it has come up. I actually work on preclinical evaluation of and safety of potential indigenous anti-malaria combination therapy. You will aware that WHO recommend the need for combination therapy, ACT. But the current ACT record has shown that is failing. It has been documented in Southeast Asia, even in Nigeria, that the Plasmodium falciparum K13 have been documented in Africa. And for that reason, we feel there is need to start thinking inwardly how to look for replacement of artemisinin with our indigenous herb. What we did, we got that herb, which we are all familiar with. Since it is 5 minutes, I may not use much of the slide. So what we did was to get this indigenous plant, which we have already worked on before to have anti-malaria property, and some other part of the world, researchers in other part of the world has also worked on it and realized that it has anti-malaria property. So what we did is to get the plant, and we now combine it with standard anti-malaria drug, lumefantrine, artemisinin, and which other one? Amodiaquine. That is the plan of the work. But we have 4 major objectives to achieve this. Identify the more effective extract from aqueous and methanolic extract. So we are using 2 extracts to know which of them is more effective. It's established that it has anti-malaria property quite all right. So we want to know which of the extract will be more efficacious. And the other one is to determine the safety of the herbs when it is combined and when it is single. So far, the research is just still very young. We still have over 1 year to spend in the research, but we have succeeded in achieving the first objective, which I will dwell into. Now, what we did, we got the approval from the university, that is ethical approval, collected the extract, pulverized the extract to get the extract out, and thereafter, at the next stage, we are going to fractionate it and test anti-malaria property of each fraction. Now, how did we determine the efficacy? There are 3 stages we use to determine the efficacy. 1, we tested the chemoprophylactic anti-malaria property. 2, we conducted suppressive 4-day test. 3, we conducted curative test on this extract. And when we did this, we realized that methanolic extract of the extract, Alubarbadensis, is more efficacious. So in the later part of the study, at the beginning, we are using animal strain, that is Plasmodium baggy. But when we are going to use the in vitro study, we are going to work on Plasmodium falciparum. But as it is, we are able to work on the animal strain to determine the efficacy. Looking at the chemoprophylactic anti-malaria activity,
please, round up, please.
We realize that we have 81.3% from methanolic and 80.8% for the 80.4% for the aqueous. We believe that if this is added to the standard drug, there are no way, with synergistic effect, there are no way it will not produce 100% in the course of the study. The other one is a suppressive study. We also realize that methanolic extract produce 61.4%, while aqueous perform poorly with 17.1%. And finally, in curative study, methanolic extract, after 6 days of administration, succeeded in reducing the malaria parasite density to 0 after 6 days, whereas aqueous have not been able to do that. So we want in the future of the program in the future study, we intend to work on in vitro effect of methanolic extract on Plasmodium falciparum, which is the human strain. with the hope of getting a placement for artemisinin. So it's going to be allobabadensis combination therapy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was thinking I would not present before, that my poster is already outside. So I'm going to do a demo presentation. Please open my presentation. We are not to present the details about the methodology or just tell us what you have done, summary of the results, that's all, and the future direction. So this is a study from my group, NRF-funded group. We are working towards identifying common protein markers for diagnosis of schistosomiasis. Second slide, please. Schistosomiasis is a very serious problem in Africa, even world generally, having about 250 million people currently infected. Unfortunately, we don't have good diagnostic tool for this particular disease. Most of the available ones are not very effective in diagnosing this infection. Furthermore, we have 2 prevalent species of schistosomiasis in Nigeria that greatly affect us. And having to purchase 2 tools for diagnosis of these 2 diseases is going to be cost demanding. So we are working towards developing a common diagnostic tool for concurrent diagnosis of this particular disease. And in achieving our aim, we are making use of 3 major approaches: ELISA, Western blot, and SDS-based analysis to separate the protein bands. Then we transfer the protein band for ELISA on a movable membrane for Western blot analysis. Next slide, please. So presently, the result we've gotten so far, we found that comparing our tool with what is in existence in the market, we have a comparable result. What is in the market, commercially available, reads about 92.6% sensitivity of the commercially available tools, but our own, we have range between 82 to 94, then 72 to 94 sensitivity level, giving us the assurance that in the nearest future, we'll be able to come up with a tool that could be used to diagnose this particular infection. And the implication of our study is that since our tool work well with urine, we can actually develop a non-invasive diagnostic tool in the near future. Then secondly, if our aim is to diagnose schistosomiasis, when we are able to promptly capture infected population, of course, it will eventually result in control of the disease. Can we go to the last slide? Unfortunately, I'm still working on the slide. I'm supposed to, the foot soldier are the students. Sorry, the students, because I'm supposed to put your picture there, but there's no time for me to do that. I'm sorry for that. But these are the collaborators here in Nigeria and abroad that we are working together on this project. Thank you. So if you use more than me, how many minutes did I use, Sama? 4 minutes. So if you use 5 minutes, I'm going to stop you at 5 minutes on dot. That was why I said 5 slides, 6 slides yesterday. I know when we have 20 slides, there is possibility that we are going to spend more than 5 minutes. So the next presenter is going to be Dr. Adejumo.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocol duly observed. Dr. Adejumo, I'm presenting the work done on cardiovascular risk factor and kidney function among automechanic and the association with serum heavy metals in southwest Nigeria, a cross-sectional study. Next slide. So the burden, next slide. The burden of cardiovascular disease is quite high. It's a major cause of mortality worldwide. And the major implicators or drivers of cardiovascular mortality and morbidity is hypertension, diabetes. However, studies have shown that there are some people that do not have hypertension and diabetes and still have cardiovascular disease or kidney disease. So that means that there's a need to look beyond hypertension and diabetes. So there's a need to look at the effect of environment and how it interplays with individual and how it can lead to cardiovascular disease, how it can lead to kidney disease. Next slide. So basically what we looked at is, we looked at people that are occupationally exposed. We looked at auto mechanics. Auto mechanic, by their work, they're exposed to petrol, they suck petrol, they use diesel, they use it to wash their hands, they're exposed to it, and as such, they can absorb heavy metals like cadmium and lead. So what we did basically is to look at the heavy metals in this group, auto mechanics, and we also compare to controls that are not exposed. Next slide. So that's what we did. So we had 162 auto mechanics that are exposed regularly to diesel, to petrol, and 81 controls. So we assay for the level of heavy metals, cadmium, lead in them to compare with control. Then we look at cardiovascular risk in both groups. Then we look at their kidney function. Next slide. So the results, we can see that the mean age is 47, which is comparable to 49, which is quite comparable. Then we notice that majority, about 50% of the auto mechanic, they wear overall, while 50% don't wear overall, and about 86% regularly use diesel to clean their hands, they are exposed to it, and 32% suck petrol with their mouth regularly. Next slide. So, next slide, please. So what we found is that the prevalence of cardiovascular risk, like elevated cholesterol, elevated uric acid, elevated blood glucose, alcohol use, was higher in auto mechanics compared to the control. That's one. Then number two is that we found out that a higher proportion, significantly higher proportion of the auto mechanic had elevated level of serum cadmium, 25.3 compared to control, which was 7.4. Of note was that lead, we found out that an appreciable proportion of those that were exposed and not exposed had elevated lead levels, 82.7 amongst the auto mechanic and 78 among the control. Next slide. So what we also found out was that the levels of those heavy metals had association with some cardiovascular markers, had association with kidney function in those group of individuals in both the total sample as well as those auto mechanics. So if you look at this slide, it shows significant positive correlation between those heavy metals and markers of kidney function, markers of cardiovascular markers. Next slide. So the implication of this study is that, number one, with those that are occupationally exposed to petrochemicals, such as auto mechanics, they have elevated serum levels of heavy metals, such as cadmium and lead. That's number one. Number two, those that are not occupationally exposed to also have significant level, especially for lead, because it was quite comparable between the auto mechanic and the control, as against cadmium, that was markedly elevated in those in auto mechanic compared to control. Then number three, we found out that there was association between the heavy metals level, the level of heavy metals and cardiovascular risk and renal function and cardiovascular risk in the study population. So the conclusion is that, number one, auto mechanics have notable exposure to heavy metals and a higher prevalence of some cardiovascular risks. Number two, heavy metals was associated with increased cardiovascular risk and reduced renal function among auto mechanic and control. So there's a need for us to do health education, sensitize those that are occupationally at risk of how to practice safe occupational practices, and also policies to limit exposure of individuals to these heavy metals. Next slide. So the future direction is that we found out that there may be possible sources of exposure to heavy metals apart from exposure to petrol. So there's a need to look at that, look at food substances that people eat, look at water bodies that they're exposed to. Then also to, taking it a step further, is also to look at the environmental effects of using agrochemicals on farmers. Next slide. Okay, so the work has been published. It was published in PLOS ONE journal some months ago. Next slide. I want to use this opportunity to thank God for being able to do this. Thank Tech Fund, the management of Unimed and Unimed Teaching Hospital, called my research team and the first set of medical students that assisted in collection of data. I also appreciate the Association of Auto Mechanic in Ondo City and Akure for allowing me to do this work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think that is still close to it. So I will invite Dr. Ijomone for the presentation from his group. This is the only, let me just do a bit of introduction here. This is the only international grant holder, at least in this group here. Will be presenting on his NIH grant that he won for his group. So
So over to you, doctor.
Does this work? Okay. So I'd already told the students that they would do the presentation because I wasn't sure I was going to be here. So they will do the presentation. I just want to give a brief intro. Yes, in 5 minutes. I will pursue them after 5 minutes. So like I was saying, there's a full title of what our lab is about. Our lab is a laboratory for experimental and transfusional neurobiology. We just started here in Unimed. And the whole title of our work is Gene-Environmental Interactions in Brain Disorders and the Role of Meta-Neurotoxicity. Our funding are basically to a 2-year grant from the ISN, which we started late last year, and a 5-year grant from the National Institute of Health. So, over to you guys.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Anad Victor, and with me here is Mr. Oyerunde Torib. So today we're presenting on gene-environment interaction, the role for neurotoxicities. So we can all agree that genetic mutation has to do with changes in DNA sequence, and just about 10 to 20% of this mutation contributes to brain disorders. However, what constitutes major of the factors that lead to this brain disorder are idiopathic, meaning that their causes are not known, and the environment plays a key role in this. The environment is a key factor in this. Among these idiopathic factors. Now, in our lab, we are more focused on metal neurotoxicity. Of course, why are we focusing on metals? Because we have an increasing use of metals in the present day. We have increased industrialization, and also we can agree that there have been increased mining activities around the country. And also, there's also a transition from the usual hydrocarbon-based source of energy to a more cleaner and renewable source of energy. And in these sources of energy, metal is key. So metals are here to stay, and there's no way we can do without metals. So studies in our lab have shown that metal adversely affects the human health, and also the brain is particularly susceptible to metal toxicity. Now, metals in the brain has been shown to result to oxidative stress, neuroinflammation, and the consequences of these neurostructural modifications are what we see as behavioral deficits. Now, these two components act as risk factors for brain disorders. Then, what is our lab all about? We are trying to find out how this genetic mutation and the environment interact to bring about these brain disorders that are listed here. So we are trying to answer the major question: how does this gene and the environment interact to bring about these brain disorders?
In another light, there are interest in gut microbiome, and most of the major works of recent have shown the relationship between the gut microbiome and brain, how gut interacts with brain. So in our lab, we are trying to elucidate the multifactorial interactions between the genetic mutations, the environmental toxicants, majorly meta-neurotoxicities, and our gut microbiome. As we all know, there are some diseases that affect our brain that has caused gut dysfunctions so many years before they even manifest as brain disease. So that's the reason why we are trying to focus on the interactions between the three. And the gut microbiome dysfunction is also a risk factor to cause brain disorders. Now in our lab, the experimental models we are using to explore these questions is C. elegans. And the reason why we are using C. elegans is, number one, is the fact that they have short lifespan, easy to grow, and they have simple